Mortem would like to thank Original Cinematic for sponsoring this week's episode. Original Cinematic is an independent production company that has made it their mission to create, produce, and promote films that are inclusive, honor women, promote the LGBTQIA+ community, and provide prominent positions and roles to POC actors and filmmakers, and promote the films of marginalized and underrepresented populations. These are all things that are extremely important to our podcast as well.
Original Cinematic is currently accepting scripts and treatments. Both William and Xxena Rush are also available via email or Zoom to discuss writing and provide input and resources to all aspiring writers free of charge. Their information will be made available in the show notes. There may be delays due to a hectic schedule and all projects being read on a first-come, first-served basis, but everything will be read and responded to. William Rush has individually produced numerous projects, including Pack is Here, Before, The Cottage, The Winemaker, and Day by Day. Their award-winning film Group premiered and was celebrated at multiple film festivals as well as screenings both in person and via Zoom that was graciously made available to us and our patrons.
Original Cinematic has many exciting projects on the horizon. Their next film, Immersion, has been completed. The award-winning Sweetener is in development. Fetish begins shooting in September, and Encore will begin next spring. Their documentary, Women in Conversation, is slated for a September release, and we are looking forward to each and every one of them. It is truly an honor to partner with Original Cinematic, and we can't thank them enough for their contribution to our show. And now, back to our regularly scheduled program. Salutations! Welcome to Pod Mortem. I'm Travis Hunter-Sayapin, joined as always by my co-hosts, my sister and my brother-in-law.
Hi, I'm Reneé Hunter-Vasquez.
Hi, I'm John Paul Vasquez.
This week, we're broadcasting live from an ominous apartment building in New York, discussing the 1980 supernatural horror film, Inferno. This film was written and directed by Dario Argento, a follow-up to his 1977 supernatural horror classic, Suspiria. Inferno acts as the second entry in what would become known as the Three Mothers trilogy. With iconic imagery, a captivating use of color, an entrancing score, and remarkable production design and effects work, Inferno not only builds upon the foundation laid by its predecessor, but it stands on its own as an indelible feast for the senses. This film was suggested to us by friends of the show, Gory Bits, Beth Bauer, Lisa, Jasmine, Murder Stina, and Ronald W. Rushing Sr. We'd like to thank each and every one of them for their continued support of the show, as well as this suggestion. So, Inferno, what were your first impressions on the film?
So this was a first-time watch for me. I know we've heard it because, of course, you've talked about it before, and I've seen it a lot on Shudder when looking for movies and stuff because they always have a large selection of Argento movies on there, which I was surprised.
I appreciate it very much.
Yeah. This movie was it was a lot. It was like it's like there in your face, like what's going on. But it's mostly the music. But I really enjoyed that. The movie is really, it looks great. A lot of it looks really, really good. The story's a little weird for me. I think it's a little. I don't want to use the word boring. I'm not going to use boring, but it's kind of slow for me, kind of like the journey. The journey towards the end was just kind of like, okay. But it wasn't too bad. I think that I was just spoiled by demons and Tenebrae, and then it's like that's what I'm expecting now. But this was not those. This was not that.
No, this was a first time watch for me as well. I had a good time. I think that it's really beautiful visually. The music.
Yeah.
Specifically, there's a song toward the end that had me in stitches. I was very surprised. And I like some of the visuals, a gag at the end.
Ooh.
Loved it. I think I have issues with pacing, which I think I'm just kind of echoing what you said.
Yeah.
I love me a slow burn, and I think that's where we're different. You're not a big slow burn guy.
Mm-hmm.
I am. And still, I was like, what? Like, kind of, when are we going to get to the fireworks factory? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then when we get to the fireworks factory, the fireworks are going the fuck off. Like,
Yeah.
and the pacing is
They were pre-lit.
Yeah.
they were. The pacing is very odd in that way. I also am not going to say boring, but I can see why that word would come to mind.
Right.
There's a lot of lingering. There's a lot of, prolonged shots. And again, it is gorgeous. The lighting, I know T was losing his mind.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very beautiful film, but I think it's just the story that's not fully there for me. And it makes me kind of lean more into style over substance as far as like the plot.
Okay, and I'm glad you said that, because I think that's kind of what it is, because everything does look really good, like you're saying.
It's gorgeous.
But I think it is just that for me. It leans a little more into that more than what I need to be learning about what's going on.
I know this is in the same world as Suspiria. I think I was just more captivated by that story. And I know that we're kind of dipping into that lore, and I kind of just wanted to feel that same, like, well, what the fuck is going to happen? You know? And I don't really, and I get frustrated with most of the characters.
Yeah.
Oh, the characters.
Yeah.
But overall, it was a good watch. I did like it. Like I said, it is very visually striking. It is very beautiful. The music alone is worth the price of admission. And there is a moment at the end that I really have thought about since finishing watching it.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really enjoyed that. So it's kind of a mixed bag, because there are things that I didn't love and there are things that I thought were really, really cool.
I don't even know where to begin. I will start my first time watching it.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this for the first time a few years after I had seen Suspiria.
Okay.
And so at the time, I was just so entranced by it. And the fact that there was another movie that had the vibe of and existed in the same world of Suspiria.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I am well aware
Yeah.
of its shortcomings in some places.
Right.
The plot is all over the place.
Yes.
Some may say, what plot?
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but thank you for saying that, because watching the movie, it's literally to the point where I was like, am I not smart enough to understand what's happening? Did I doze off? Because I'm like, I feel like this far into the movie, I shouldn't be this confused as to what is going on.
I think there is one thing about it as far as the plot is concerned, where if you just think of it and you're following like the sections of like one character, you're like, oh, this plot is very simple and straightforward.
Yeah.
But then you have all these other things happening on the side.
Yes.
And so you're like, the way that I view this film and the way that I appreciate it is almost like interconnected vignettes.
Okay.
And it's almost like these nightmarish sequences that all tie into the same quote narrative unquote.
Okay.
I feel like it does work better that way.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
it is not, it's just not cohesive.
It doesn't exactly mesh.
Yeah, and some of the cuts, the way some scenes just stop.
I gotta be honest, I don't know, and I couldn't find it in my research, but that felt like almost like censorship.
Okay.
I can totally see that, because
yeah.
it's like jarring.
Because there's one that is straight up a death scene that you're like, oh, we're about to see some nitty gritty.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, no, we're on the streets of New York.
Yoink.
Yeah. Like, never mind. So, okay. But, so yeah, I do understand that.
Yeah.
And I will say, as you were talking about when it comes to the characters, we bounce through a lot of people that you think are going to be your protagonist.
Yeah.
And then the one that we land on, I fucking hate him.
Yeah. It was an odd choice.
Yeah. Of all the people that you have here,
Yeah.
you pick the blandest, like most boring. And I will say in a charitable way, I will say he's naive.
Right.
In
Yes.
a not so charitable way, I will say he is fucking stupid. I do not like this guy. He's well-meaning,
Right.
but he's a doofus.
Yes. Yeah.
And I will say in the same way, nearly for me, everything about Suspiria is clearly superior.
Okay.
But saying that, God damn it, do I love this movie.
Okay.
And I think that it is a matter of how much it plays with those things that I loved so much about Suspiria.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't as tight as Suspiria.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really follow, even some of the suspenseful sequences, you're like, I love being along for this ride, but it doesn't hit the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still vibrant and colorful.
Mm-hmm.
The production design and set design is absolutely immaculate.
Yeah, it is.
The kind of dreamlike atmosphere, it feels like you're in a nightmare a lot of this film.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that because it is this otherworldly feeling, and I feel like that can be interconnected with the idea of these witches.
Yeah.
Right.
And I do, even though it doesn't do it as fully as I would like, I love the idea of expanding on the lore of these three mothers.
Mm-hmm.
I would like more time with that
Yeah.
Yeah.
and more time with certain characters in particular,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that ending is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life.
It's really
Yeah,
cool.
It is cool.
And it would be really cool to know this character a little bit more.
Right.
What we learned in Suspiria about things that happened at the end, we had a lot more time with the people that were a part of the conspiracy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would appreciate that here. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? This is like a nightmare fantasy just blasted at you.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say I completely understand the things that don't work for a lot of people. I kind of almost excuse as like dream logic
Okay.
to kind of make it make sense for me and make it a little more palatable narratively.
Mm-hmm.
But if you say that this film doesn't have a plot, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Or you say that you said style over substance. I even understand that.
Right.
Yeah.
But I love the style.
And that's fine.
No, yeah.
But I do want to talk a little bit about the production.
Okay.
I got a lot of information from these selected sources. The first, Italian Gothic horror films from 1980 to 1989, a book by Roberto Corti. Another book, Broken Mirrors, Broken Minds by Maitland McDonough, which thank you, TJ Bronson, for sending that to us. Another book, Mario Bava, All the Colors of the Dark by Tim Lucas. An interview with Daria Nicolodi with Arrow Video. And lastly, an interview with Dario Argento and Daria Nicolodi in Fangoria magazine.
All right.
All right.
So, by many accounts, the production of 1977's Suspiria had absolutely drained Dario Argento mentally and physically. And so, after a bout of depression and a temporary separation and eventual reconciliation with Daria Nicolodi, who is his creative and romantic partner,
Mm-hmm.
Argento took a self-imposed sabbatical from directing.
Okay.
And so it was on this break with this extra free time that Suspiria opened overseas, which included America. So Argento found himself on a promotional tour of Suspiria in the United States.
Oh, all right.
It was actually during this tour that Argento first met George A. Romero, which eventually led to the collaboration and co-production of Dawn of the Dead,
Okay.
Uh-huh.
which you can hear all about on episode 97. But according to Curti, Argento fell in love with America when he was here, specifically New York City.
All right.
And he said that when he made his next film, he was definitely going to set his next film there.
Mm-hmm.
If you recall, on episode 109, when we covered Suspiria,
Right.
we discussed how integral Daria Nicolodi was as a co-writer. She drew on Family Stories and Suspiria de Profundis by Thomas de Quincey, and of course the creative partnership she had with Dario Argento
Mhm.
Yeah.
to really help craft, in my view, a masterpiece.
Yeah.
So the difficulty is, according to Nicolodi, it was like pulling teeth to get a co-writer credit for her on Suspiria.
Huh.
And so for Inferno, she preferred to just, and I quote, donate a storyline and her ideas to Argento to avoid the headache, and did not receive a co-writer credit on this film.
Wow. So do we think maybe she was like This is revenge. This story.
Come on, man.
Seems like the audiences are gonna love it.
That's fucked
Bro, you
up.
can do it here.
Yeah,
I will say,
it's totally cohesive. It makes complete sense.
Well, the storyline, I'm not here to defend everything. I'm trying to tell you how it happened.
I'm sorry. Please continue.
But I will say she did mention that the difficulty was a matter of finances. And so I guess it's a matter of paying 2 writers instead of 1.
Wow.
And so simply having your name credited, it costs the producers more. And
Okay.
she had said, she goes, I don't need to be paid monetarily. She's like, give me a trip to the Caribbean. That's fine.
I mean, and
Yeah.
give me my due.
Honestly.
Give me my credit.
Yeah.
Because if you did come up with a story, I think that your name should be in the credits with
Yes,
Argento.
it
Yeah.
should.
But just like Suspiria, Nickelodeon pushed Argento further from the giallo film and deeper into fantasy, alchemy, the supernatural, and the occult. And this will come up again later in a way that is unfortunate, but does lead to really awesome things, which we have discussed on the show before.
Yeah.
But with this framework that Nickelodeon gave him and the idea, Argento moved into a New York City apartment to work on the screenplay for Inferno. And what resulted was a 267-page screenplay complete with elaborate set descriptions and camera movements.
Okay.
Which is wild because when you think about it, a lot of people say that 1 page of a screenplay equals 1 minute of screen time.
Yeah.
And this movie is not 267 minutes.
No.
So there must be an incredible amount of description
Yeah.
and elaborate ideas regarding the set. And Nickelodeon herself said that that's one thing that Argento put into a lot of his scripts is he had everything down almost like clinically and technically to every detail.
Yeah.
But something very human, which I think we can all relate to, is after he completed this massive work, he doubted it completely.
Of course.
And so he brought in Dardano Sacchetti, who he wrote The Cat of Nine Tails with, and who also worked a lot with Lucio Fulci, and co-wrote the screenplay of Lamberto Bava's Demons.
Okay. Yeah.
But they worked together for weeks on it, and as it turns out, Sacchetti really just convinced Argento that his ideas were wonderful, and they did not change a thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But the production began in 1979 with a budget of $3 million, and it was a co-production with 20th Century Fox. It was filmed, they did 2 weeks of exteriors in New York City, and we'll talk about the differences, because they returned to Rome in a studio for 14 weeks, and it is incredible how they bounce back between the two.
Oh, wow.
But Argento had an incredibly difficult time during the production because he was ill with hepatitis.
Oh, my
shit.
God.
And he even directed some sections of the film lying down in bed.
Oh, that dude, man.
Yeah. But naturally, he says it was one of his least favorite productions, and it's because he can't separate the personal from the...
Of course.
You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of impossible to do. But this film features the work of one of my favorite filmmakers of all time, aside from Argento, Mario Bava,
Yeah.
in his last creative work, but we'll get to that later.
Okay.
But the unfortunate thing is that sometime during this production, the higher-ups at Fox change. And so despite the eagerness of the previous higher-ups, these new higher-ups don't know what to do with Inferno. So there was box office success in Europe for Inferno when it was initially released, but in America, Fox decided not to give it a theatrical release.
What?
The wild thing is that they would eventually release it for 1 week in one theater in New York City in 1986.
What the fuck?
Whoa.
Yeah, this film is made in 1980.
Yeah.
There are, oddly, even Tim Lucas pointed it out, or maybe it was Roberto Corti in his book. They pointed out that there is a release date listed for the United States on IMDb
Yeah.
in 1980, but they say that it couldn't have run for more than like a day.
God.
Wow.
But
He's like, actually, I hate America.
he's like, fuck this place. But he spoke at great lengths about how disappointed he was in Fox,
Yeah.
because when you are promised something and you are told you're making this film it's a co-production and they're going to distribute it.
Yeah.
And then they just flat out don't.
Well, and we've heard about this before, about agreements being made and then people quit or get fired and then more people come in and they're like, oh, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah. This must have been before Fox was just letting anybody have a show.
They changed again.
Yeah.
But I think it was eventually released on video.
Okay.
And this is, I think, where the American audience for Inferno came about.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some changes made. And oddly, the runtime was listed as like 20 minutes shorter, but it was the exact same runtime as theatrical.
Right.
But it's just a strange misprint, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing, according to Nickelodeon, despite the financial success and the initial eagerness to see Inferno by European audiences, just worldwide audiences alike, after watching it, everybody was really clamoring for Argento to return to giallo films. And so they kind of blamed her for his dip into the supernatural because it was her ideas that made Suspiria happen.
Yeah.
And again, it just seems like blaming.
She can't get the credit.
Yeah. And then
but she'll
also,
get the blame.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
It's bullshit.
Right.
Yeah.
Wrong credit.
Yeah. Yes.
That's fucking ridiculous.
But after this, Nickelodeon was ready to continue the Three Mothers trilogy and have a film for the third mother. And they even created a screenplay together, Nickelodeon and Argento.
Mm-hmm.
But because of this kind of outcry from the public and a few personal reasons from Argento, he decided instead to follow those public demands and return to the giallo film, which gave us Tenebrae.
Yeah.
All right.
You
take the good.
You're about to get real pissed off, and then you're like, ah.
I did love Tenebrae.
But as we talked about on, I think, the episode for Suspiria and the episode for Tenebrae, the trilogy of the Three Mothers wouldn't be completed until 2007.
Yeah.
Which is wild and unfortunate because it's terrible. And I will say it doesn't include the creative involvement of Daria Nicolodi at all.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Which kind of says a lot about how impactful and important she was to Argento's work.
Yeah.
But she does appear in the film. It's like a cameo. And she talked about how she was pleased to do it because she's acting in a film with her daughter and everything.
Right.
But it is not what it could have been if it had been made in the 80s, I will say.
Yeah.
But despite its difficult production and release, Inferno is highly regarded by a lot of horror fans, a lot of fans of Italian horror and Argento in particular. And many consider it one of Argento's best, or at the least one of his most underrated films.
Okay.
And I count myself in that camp. I feel alone at this table.
Hey.
Now, before we discover this film's secret, we would like to issue a warning for spoilers. Pod Mortem is a very in-depth podcast, and in thoroughly discussing horror films, we have no choice but to spoil a thing or two. If you don't wish to be spoiled, please go watch the film, then come back and enjoy the show. If you've already seen the film or don't care about spoilers, let's follow the clues. Now, this film and the episode itself makes references to the 1977 supernatural horror film, Suspiria. If you haven't seen it, we recommend you watch it, or go listen to episode 109 of our show as a refresher. So the film begins with the sound of poignant piano in the score as we overlook several items resting on a wooden desk. A small, shimmering letter opener with a hand-painted handle, a set of apartment keys attached to a decorative keychain in the shape of a coiled coral snake, and last, but certainly not least, a weathered copy of The Three Mothers by Emilio Varelli, the golden letters still readable on its faded green cover. We get on-screen text reading, New York, April, and as the piano continues delicately in the background, a hand reaches for the book, opening it as its owner, Rose Elliott, played by Irene Miracle, reads the title out loud.
Irene Miracle. We remember her from Puppet Master.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
She was the psychic.
Yes.
Oh, man.
But Rose flips through the front matter of the book, her fingers tracing over the title page, and once she discovers that the book is still sealed at the top, she snags her letter opener, piercing through the gap in the pages, slicing it open. I did not know that this was a common thing with older books.
No.
Me neither.
So I did like a little research, and it was very common. I think they said all the way up into the 20th century with a lot of printing, they would leave these pages sealed so that the reader can cut it open themselves.
How satisfying.
And that
Why do we
was-
do that anymore?
Yeah, it was. They said it was like a gift. Every section was divided.
Oh, okay.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
But Rose's eyes trace over the Latin text in the preface as the voice of the author, credited to William Keel, who also provided the opening narration in Suspiria,
Yeah.
Oh.
reads, I do not know what price I shall have to pay for breaking what we alchemists call silentium. The life experiences of our colleagues should warn us not to upset laymen by imposing our knowledge upon them. Rose sits pensive as she continues reading, a pendant of the evil eye resting on a necklace at her throat, and an eerie green light pouring through the window over her shoulder. Rose reaches for a Latin dictionary as Varelli reveals through his written words that he is an architect living in London and that he himself met the three mothers and designed and built for them 3 dwelling places, one in Rome, one in New York, and the third in Freiburg, Germany. Suspiria.
Yeah.
As Rose consults the dictionary, Varelli states that he failed to discover until too late that from these 3 locations, the 3 mothers ruled the world with sorrow, tears, and darkness. Mater Suspiriorum, the mother of sighs and the oldest of the 3, lives in Freiburg. Mater Lacrimarum, the mother of tears, the most beautiful of the sisters, rules in Rome. And she doesn't get the film she deserves, unfortunately.
Well, she's the most beautiful. She's the only one with the favorable description.
Consolation prize, right? But Rose's eyes follow over the name of the third mother, Mater Tenebrarum, the mother of darkness, the youngest and cruelest of the 3, according to Varelli, controls New York. As the music rises tensely, Varelli laments the fact that he built their horrible houses, the repositories of all their filthy secrets. He claims that these so-called mothers are actually wicked stepmothers, incapable of creating life. But as he continues and Rose peers into the pages, we abruptly fade to black and get the title of the film written ornately in red as the music swells. Inferno. So they cut him off like mid-sentence, which was wild.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know who was in charge of that or whose decision that was. But I did think it was interesting, this distinction made between them being mothers and being stepmothers.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
There is like an element that I always felt in Suspiria, and a lot of people do talk about it, of it being like this dark fairy tale.
Okay.
And I feel like that continues here in a lot of ways, and that is one of like the most quintessential.
The evil stepmother.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. And there are a few more that I'll point out along the way, but it's neat to start there already.
Yeah, the music was doing a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I'm here for that. I was like, damn, this shit is going hard.
Yeah.
The title card was great too.
Yeah. I did enjoy this. It felt almost like an Outer Limits or Tales from the Dark Side, or you know what I mean? Like this whole little opening here, the narration and all that in the book, and I was like, oh damn, this shit's something is gonna happen.
And you had mentioned the music.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to talk about the absolute just banger of a soundtrack this film has.
Yes.
The composer, surprisingly, was not Goblin.
Okay.
It was a guy called Keith Emerson. He was quite well known for a group that he was in called Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Okay.
And my mind drew a blank on their name, but I know that I've heard it before.
Right.
Yeah.
But Argento apparently wanted to work with Keith Emerson since 1971.
Oh, shit.
And so this was kind of like a dream come true for him to work with him on this film.
Okay.
But he had said that the very interesting thing about it is whenever he showed him segments of the film to score just to see like different tones and get different ideas, he brought a keyboard to the proceedings and to the meeting.
Love that.
And so whenever they were watching segments of the film, he was like, hey, just pause that for a second and roll it back. And he's literally writing the score then.
That's great.
He's like, I've got the craziest shit you've ever heard.
Yeah.
It's like, you wait till the end of the film. I got a great idea. But Argento said he had never seen anything like it before.
Well, that's really cool. I can do this right now. We
Yeah.
don't do this shit on the fly.
Yeah.
And there are some really beautiful moments in the score, and it goes so many different places. I know we keep referencing one song in particular.
Yeah.
But this opening is really beautiful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moments later on that are really dramatic and suspenseful. There's some like moments of genuine fright that are just perfect for this style of film.
Right.
I love Goblin, and I really love this as well. And I just think that that's one thing about Argento films is the music just always delivers.
Yes.
But when we return from the title screen, Rose now sits on the hardwood floor, her elbow resting on the seat of her black leather couch and the copy of The Three Mothers sitting on the skirt in her lap. The opening credits continue in glowing white text as Varelli's voice declares that by giving these creatures the single yet terrifying name, in effect, however, the three mothers were also sisters, just as there are three muses, three graces, three fates, and three furies. So this is reference to Suspiria de Profundis, which we talked about on episode 109, Suspiria. But there is a really cool thing here. There's a moment that is hidden in one of the lines that comes in later and becomes a really important thing, with him saying, giving these three mothers one terrifying name.
Yeah.
And you don't even think about it.
Not at all. I didn't even put it together till you just said that.
No, it took me like several times watching it.
Yeah.
But it's such an important point. And you're like, you should have hit that more.
Yeah.
Because it's a big fucking deal. But as ominous brass sings in the score, Varelli prognosticates that the land upon which the three buildings have been constructed will eventually become deathly and plaguely ridden, so much so that the area all around will reek horrible. But he says that this is the first key to the mother's secret, truly the primary key. And the second key to the poisonous secret of the three sisters is hidden under the cellar of their houses. He instructs that this is where you can find the picture and the name of the sister that lives in the house, which is mighty convenient.
Very specific.
Yes.
Maybe you shouldn't have put that there. But Rose nervously fidgets her hands as she learns that the third key can be found under the soles of her shoes. She raises her head to ponder this cryptic clue. But as she returns to her desk, she unscrews the cap of a fountain pen and begins writing a letter to her brother, Mark. As she continues writing, the camera pans over from her letter to the opened copy of The Three Mothers, which is set aside and resting atop a white telephone. But there, on the page, accompanied by stabs of synth, we see the sketch of a towering Gothic structure, the home claimed to have been built by Emilio Varelli for Mater Tenebrarum. And as the music reaches a crescendo, the camera rises above stacked books on Rose's desk over to a wall, where a large framed picture rests above her fireplace, featuring the facade of a building that is identical to the drawing in Varelli's book.
I loved that transition.
Yeah.
Yes, because we match cut to the building itself that night, surrounded by skyscrapers off in the distance, as it stands sinisterly over a New York street, each window of its 6 floors trimmed in white, a golden fluorescence emanating sporadically through a few of the windows.
That transition.
Yes.
I did think that was funny, though.
Yeah.
Because we've seen it a few times. Then we're there.
It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it is kind of funny. It's like, do we hang a picture of the building in every one of our units? But the main entrance on the ground floor is brightly lit and bathed in the raspberry glow of nearby street lamps as Rose makes her way through the door, stepping out from what we now know is her apartment building and onto a sidewalk, surveying the street in the pale blue evening. Seemingly lost in thought, Rose marches onward toward a post office collection box, licking and sealing the envelope of the letter addressed to her brother. As she drops it inside, the camera rises above her to spy a nearby parking lot surrounded by trees, which dance lightly in the evening breeze. So we need to talk about this building because just the sight of it is striking.
Yeah.
But it is so incredibly realized because this building that we see in the film is built on a set in Rome.
Oh,
wow.
really?
Yes, and it's just like the same thing we talked about in Suspiria where the dance academy.
Yeah.
It appears so vivid and real and perfectly constructed, and it was also on a studio in Rome.
That's wild.
And just like that dance academy, it's based on a real building that they found, this one happening to be in New York.
Right.
The production designer was a guy called Giuseppe Bassan, who did production design on Deep Red, Suspiria, and Tenebrae.
Okay.
Love it.
But as I said, it was based on a real building in Manhattan, and they took a ton of photos and painstakingly recreated it, and it is the size of the structure that you would see if you were to walk on Riverside Drive in New York City.
Damn.
But the interesting thing is that, as I said, they filmed a bit in New York for a couple of weeks, and then they filmed the rest of the 14 weeks in Rome. When we see the building head on, it's always in Rome.
Right.
But this shot of her walking to drop the mail in the post is a shot from New York City.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So the switch is kind of unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
But the surrounding cityscape behind the buildings was created by none other than Mario Bava.
Okay.
And the story of him being involved in this film, Lamberto Bava, his son and the director of Demons.
Yes.
He had already been hired by Argento as the assistant director for this film. But Argento realized that with the budget they had, they needed to create New York City in Rome.
Yeah.
And he's like, the only way to do this is to bring in who he called the father of this, which is Mario Bava.
Yeah.
Because Mario Bava did a lot of work on environments. He did a lot of special effects work in his films and films of others. He basically did it all.
Yeah.
And he's, of course, one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. But Bava joined the production under one condition, and it was that his work would go uncredited.
Wow.
He was at the end of his career.
Yeah.
He actually passed away, I think, a few months before this film was released in 1980. But he just wanted to work on a production with his son again and with Dario Argento.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so he did so for, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks that he was there.
Yeah.
And it was his last production, so he went out with a bang.
Okay.
I love that.
Yeah.
But the way that he created this cityscape is he actually created a hanging model of the building that Giuseppe Bassan built. And around it, he inserted it optically into a New York skyline that he created out of egg cartons and photos.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. And you look at it, it's New York City.
Yeah.
I love that
Yeah.
so much. That's incredible.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot more work that he did that we'll talk about later. But he had talked about how whenever he was on set, and I read this in Tim Lucas's book, he would show people things and he's like, look, it does not look good right now. But the second you see it on film,
Trust the process.
Yeah.
and you see this alone, just the facade of that building,
Yeah.
you're like, this is New York City.
Oh, yeah.
That's incredible.
You fooled me.
Yeah.
But Rose turns back around to face the storefront of Kazanian Antiques, a store right next to her apartment building. She crosses the street, but stops for a moment, transfixed on a sight in the alleyway between the two structures. The music hums ominously as we see it, too. A grated door that leads to the lower floors of the apartment. I gotta say, it takes a really long time for people to put some clues together.
Yeah.
No shit.
Because they're pretty plainly stated. But Rose does not go into the alley.
Of course not.
Lit in the haze of the street lamp above her, the memory of Varelli's voice echoes in Rose's mind. The second key is hidden in the cellar. And we spy her through the grates as she makes her way over to the antique shop instead, knocking on the glass door out front. After a moment, a silhouette is carved out of the bright lights beaming through the windows, and the owner of the shop opens the door to answer Rose. Kazanian, played by Sacha Pitoev, stands in the doorway, balancing on a crutch under his right arm as Rose bids him a good evening.
It's nighttime. I don't know what time it is, but we look closed.
Yeah. She's like, hey, no, I need to talk about, but this is very relatable to me. I need to talk about something I just read. Wake up.
I don't care if it's 2 a.m.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
But Rose immediately cuts to the chase, requesting more information about the book that she bought from him, The Three Mothers, and she asks if he's read it himself. Kazanian shifts somewhat nervously on his crutch, sharing that he has read some of it, and he invites her inside, closing the door behind her when she enters. In the privacy of his shop, Rose wonders if the story in the book is fiction, or if there's actually some truth to it. Somewhat amused by the question, Kazanian asks if the book upset Rose, before offering soothingly that it's nothing more than a book written by some alchemist, and that lots of books have been written about houses of the damned. As Rose's eyes pan across assorted antiques behind him, figurines, statues, dolls, bookshelves lined with manuscripts, Kazanian lists a few. The Bulgaria Villa of Monsters near Palermo, the House of Peacocks in Brussels, the Salamander Maison in France, adding that while some people believe these books to be pure fantasy, others believe every word. But we suddenly spy the silhouettes of the pair through the window outside, pressing in on them, as Kazanian notes that women are usually the worst readers of this stuff, or the best, if Rose prefers, as they want very much to believe. This man has some troubling views on a lot of things, we'll learn.
Yeah.
This isn't even the half of it.
It gets worse than you can even imagine.
Yeah.
Honestly. Rose disagrees, however, sharing that the book mentions a horrible odor and remarks that all around here there is a strange, bittersweet smell. Kazanian attributes this smell to a nearby cake factory, adding that it's been here as long as he has, and he asks Rose if the smell bothers her.
A cake factory.
Yeah.
That's, and also you mean a bakery?
Yeah.
That's number one.
It's giving steamed ham.
Honestly.
It was a cheesecake factory.
Oh,
Yeah.
very good. Very good. So no, it doesn't bother me.
No.
And I will say, I did read, Corti did talk about this idea of fairy tales.
Yeah.
Sweet smells being like a trap from an evil source.
Oh, like
okay.
the house. The
Hansel and Gretel?
Yes. I was gonna say gingerbread house. It was, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I think so. Well, there's a lot of shit going on. in the house.
Yeah, she had a lot going on.
Yeah. And cannibalism, apparently. But
Moving on.
yeah, and also if you think about Hansel and Gretel, you got to think about a brother and sister,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's
that
a
is
very
true.
good point.
which kind of plays into this too. But when Rose doesn't answer his question, Kazanian assures her that she'll get used to the smell after a while and she'll stop noticing. But Rose insists that this odor isn't the only strange coincidence that she's discovered from reading the book. Kazanian interrupts, however, agreeing that though the book does contain some mysterious sections, he says that the only true mystery is that their lives are governed by dead people. Rose appears confused, but Kazanian ends their meeting abruptly, bidding her a sharp goodnight and opening the door for her to exit.
Thanks for your help, I guess.
Yeah, I had more questions.
Yeah.
He's like, now get out.
You tell me the scariest thing I've ever heard,
Yeah.
and then throw me out on the
Good
street.
night.
I will say, I guess, is this him supposing that Emilio Varelli is dead? And that he's saying, don't buy into this shit?
I
Okay.
guess. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because otherwise, this quote is just frightening.
Yeah.
And cool.
It is cool. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of lines in this film that are just cool on their surface.
Yeah.
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 And you start to dig into them, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And they kind of start piecing it together. I will say, I know I talked about how the narrative structure is just kind of just not there. But there are some lines that if you do keep them in mind,
Mm-hmm.
you follow through, like, because this is a clue to later that does lead to another interesting twist.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But Rose steps out onto the street, the sleeves of her blouse billowing in the breeze as Kazanian closes the door behind her. But as she continues down the sidewalk and back to her apartment building, she stops once again to peer into the alley between the buildings. Two small cats sniff around a metal trash can, muttering minor meows, as Rose once again hears the voice of Varelli in her mind. The second key is hidden in the cellar.
Right?
Yeah.
He's like, hello.
How did you not hear me the first time?
Well, it's a side quest. It's
It
right
is.
there.
Right.
It activates every time you get close enough.
Even the cats are like,
Dude, come on.
That's why there's two of them. One, it's just there.
Uh-huh.
Two, something's
Yeah, you
hidden
need to
It's
here.
look.
important.
Also, new favorite characters.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And they will reappear. But Rose looks both ways before crossing towards the cellar door, a tense piano melody accompanying her cautious steps. Rose reaches down, lifting the cellar door open, and we watch as a thin metal staircase locks in place beneath it, leading to the floor down below. As Rose descends, her white shoes clicking against the steel, a ghastly green light emanates from beneath the steps. And color theory could mean decay,
Yeah.
Okay.
and we will soon learn as well.
Yeah.
But we return to the alley, panning past the cats near the trash can, to find Kazanian standing at the window of his shop, peering out into the night, a slight smirk resting on his face.
It's like, oh, so you know more than what you're saying.
Yeah.
Clearly, but then also later, not really. So
Right now, you know more than what you're saying.
I feel like a lot of this film is everyone's a suspect,
Yeah.
you know?
He's probably just smiling. He's like, I bet she's fucking scared.
It's like, why didn't she, Varelli? I heard him talking. Finally. But down in the cellar, through shelves and cobweb-covered items long forgotten to time, Rose finds her way through a corridor, removing a lighter from the waistband of her skirt to light her way through the blue darkness. She enters a large industrial room, withered white columns at its center, hanging pipes lining its edges, and red light carving pathways through the dark. The piano pulses pensively as Rose continues onward, holding herself tightly as she shivers from the cold. But after discovering a long, useless light bulb within a mass of webs, Rose eyes a broken pipe before her, and the camera traces it, gliding down as water trickles from an opening in its side. We follow the trickling water to a small stream leading deeper into the cellar, and Rose walks along this path until she discovers a hole in the floor at the center of the room, where the water is collected into a puddle.
I loved how this stream looked
Yeah.
and like us kind of following it. I thought it looked really cool.
It adds this like feeling of suspense because you're like, I don't know what the hell we're gonna
Yeah.
stumble upon.
It was very the colors. I liked following it and the way the colors change it instead of it just being like dirty or dingy or you know what I mean, pretty dark. You are able to see what's going on.
Yeah. And that honestly, that leads me into a perfect place to talk about the cinematography for a second.
Okay.
The cinematographer was a guy called Romano Albini, and he was actually the former assistant of Luciano Tovoli, who shot Suspiria.
Okay.
But they were talking about it in Corti's book. They had talked about wanting to get away from simply mimicking the look of Suspiria,
Okay.
which would have just been a very easy thing to do, especially with so much of the same crew there.
Yeah.
But what they decided to do instead is devise a color scheme wholly its own so they can give this film its own feel and flavor.
Okay.
And so where you had these primary colors that dominated Suspiria, you do get them from time to time, but more often than not, they're relying on different shades of these same colors.
Yeah.
And it isn't even until like rewatching the film, because in my mind, I'm like, you have your blues, you have your reds.
Yeah.
But it really is what they said. It's violet, it's lavender blue, and it's raspberry.
Yeah.
And so you see like these pink hues and you think of it in your mind, you're like, oh, it's just a lighter red.
Yeah.
But it's a completely different feel.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's kind of this connection to Suspiria through using these vibrant colors, but also creating your own language with it.
Right.
That's cool. And I do admire them not just going down the same road and mimicking it, especially this being like in the same universe. I think that would, like you said, it would have been very easy.
Yeah. And they do. I mean, there's a lot of really cool moments that are almost lifted from Suspiria
Yeah.
that you appreciate, but it's like if you did every single thing, it would have just been a retread.
Yeah.
But Rose peers into the seemingly small pool of water, but as she kneels down to get a closer look, the snake-shaped keychain hooked at her hip comes loose, splashing into the water below. Rose reaches for the keys, but is too late to catch them, and they sink deeper and deeper to her dismay. Through the pipes and staggered wooden planks of the cellar, we watch as Rose snags a nearby lamp toppled on the ground and sets it upright, switching it on to light a proper view into the water. She gazes downward, discovering that her keys have hooked onto an errant piece of debris down below. But as she reaches her arm through the water, up to her shoulder, she realizes that her keys are just barely out of her grasp. And we return to the alley outside, the heels of a pair of shoes clicking against the concrete as we approach the cellar door in a POV shot. That's another thing I really like about this film, is that you feel just paranoia.
Mm-hmm.
When she was in Kazanian's shop, you're like, somebody's out here watching me.
Yeah.
Right now, somebody is listening to everything that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it's just very scary.
Yeah.
But down below, Rose realizes what she has to do. And after removing her shoes, she sits at the ledge of the hole, dipping her bare feet into the cold water before steeling herself and diving in.
Good for her, I guess. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't realize at first that it was her keys that she had dropped.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm like, I'm not going in there for anything. Her keys.
Yeah.
You need your keys, I get it. But now I'm just mad at you for not having a grip on them.
Well,
Yeah.
they were attached to her hip. It's the
They were
manufacturer's fault, really.
We're suing them. No, but I'm like, that's standing water. You don't know what's in there. You're going to get one of those urethra parasites.
Oh,
like,
they swim right for it.
Yeah.
I don't know how they know.
They know.
It's wild, dude.
they know. But it was stressing me out.
No, I get that, but I don't know what I would do in the situation.
It is that.
Cry.
Because, yeah. Because watching it's that. The water, I know it's trickling now, but how long has that water been that way?
Yeah.
What's in that water?
Mhm.
And it was, I feel like if she just would have gotten, remember last week when he was putting that stick, he was using that stick to put the wire back up on the hook?
Oh.
Yeah.
Go get a stick. I know that didn't work out for him.
Yeah, I was going to say.
That is, two disastrous consequences,
I
dude.
think he electrocuted himself.
He did, and it was really funny.
Yeah.
It's a different situation. Get a stick. I just feel like I would have tried so many different things before. I'm like, well, guess I got to go down there.
I think, honestly, it's very funny to me because she couldn't reach it with her arms.
Right.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm a toe grabber. Like,
1000%.
if something's on the ground, I don't feel like bending down, I'll pick it up with my toe.
And your urethra is still out of the water.
Yeah, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
But the camera captures Rose from below, deep within the water, as she sinks just past a hanging chandelier where her keys are caught. All sound muffled around her, Rose gazes deeper, discovering an entire room, ornately decorated and fantastically furnished, submerged in cloudy water. Her left hand clutching the opened mouth of the pool at the top of the ceiling, she reaches her right hand for the chandelier in front of her, seizing her keys from their trap, but her eyes make further note of her surroundings. A lavish candelabra, menacing marble animals, a rippling red cloth, and, most importantly indeed, a large golden frame resting against the wall with 2 words written gorgeously in gold at the bottom. Mater Tenebrarum. So that's solved.
Yeah.
I was expecting his voice to come back and be like, the names.
Yeah.
Are written in the basement or whatever. Yeah. It's funny to me how the mystery persists.
Yes. I was like, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah, I don't know.
But she should know, right?
She's definitely.
Yeah, she should. She should.
But Rose finally unlatches her keys, but is unable to secure them, and they sink swiftly to the floor below. Flustered and in need of a breath, Rose swims through the hole at the top of the ceiling, resurfacing and resting her arms in their soaked sleeves on the edges of the concrete opening.
That was a skill check, and she failed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, dude.
The bar was going down.
Yeah.
Gathering a proper breath, Rose descends into the water once again, swimming to the bottom in search of her keys. But through the water, she doesn't notice a large black door creaking open and closed in the current, and bright light cast between the crack. Rose grasps her keys and attempts to unfasten them from the snake-shaped keychain for some reason. I'm like, just take the whole thing.
What the fuck?
It's like, everyone knows this keychain's like 500 pounds.
Like, I didn't get it. Their inventory was full.
Yeah.
I got the keys or the keychain. That's all.
No, I can't fast travel.
She's over encumbered.
Yeah.
But suddenly, and to Rose's shock and horror, just above her floats a decayed human corpse, its clothes hanging in tatters, its eyes wide and forever frightful, and its skin picked away to the rough muscle beneath. The score shrieks around Rose as she screams, bubbles rising from her mouth as she tries to swim away, only to come face to face with two more rotted bodies just like the first, batting them away as she rises to the top of the room, kicking her feet fearfully.
I love how these corpses look.
Yes.
Yeah.
They look incredible. I knew there was going to be some bullshit down here. And I don't know what it is, if it's the music, the lighting, something about this when she's trying to swim away from the corpses reminded me very much of Creepshow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like a lot.
I think it was the corpses, the
Yeah.
way they look. Because I kind of, like I said, it's just giving that vibe.
That is interesting, and you think about Argento and Romero working together. And
Yeah.
So maybe there is some influence.
Yeah.
Something interesting. I love, like you had said, I love the way that this looks. I love the way that the water is cloudy. I love all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Albini, the cinematographer, did not like the way that this scene looked, and he begged Argento to let him reshoot it, and Argento refused.
Huh.
I wonder why.
He
Yeah.
said it's too muddy, it's too cloudy, the dust from the furniture made it to where we can't see anything happening.
But I think that adds, I think you can see
Yeah.
it fine,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
think that adds to what is happening down here.
Yeah.
And that's to the age of it, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And you can see, you see that fucking door opening and closing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see everything we need to see.
And if it was crisp and clear like a swimming pool, it's like, this
Yeah.
is...
Yeah.
It'd be a
who's
little
been taking care of
ridiculous.
it?
Yeah, honestly. Made her 10 a barn.
Yeah.
Yes. The name's right there. I did want to say, though, watching her, because it's her.
Yeah.
I'm like, my lungs could never. I'd be
No.
like Sonic without an air bubble. Like, I'm done. But I did read that she was a former professional swimmer.
That makes sense.
Okay.
So that makes sense. Yeah, I'm like, because there's no fucking way.
No.
Like, there's literally no way.
Yeah, because, and not being mean, but she takes her time down there.
She does.
And I was like, please go up and get some more water. But or some more air.
Yeah.
You're in the water too long. I know I'd have been down there, like you said, maybe 10
Yeah,
seconds.
or find the air
like,
bubble and go,
Yeah.
You're fine for a little while longer.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not making that noise. What's happening?
Oh my God. I'm triggered.
But in her terror, Rose misses the pool's opening entirely, sailing right to the ceiling and knocking her head against the fixtures. She kicks her feet to steer herself in the right direction, but comes into contact with the cranium of one of the corpses, sending it deeper below, only to rise again for her to bat it away in fright. Seizing the chandelier, Rose is able to pull herself towards the opening of the ceiling, and in a POV shot, Rose emerges from the water and climbs the concrete of the cellar floor. Again, there's moments like this where you're like, it's not necessary to see that from her point of view,
Yeah.
but it's cool just to have that split second.
Yeah.
But the score swirling around her, Rose reaches her feet and takes off running, leaving not only her shoes behind, but also a shiny tube of lipstick. And as Rose rushes up the metal steps of the cellar, water dripping from her soaking clothes, the camera dips down to the items that she left behind, and we watch as a black-gloved hand reaches from off-screen to collect the lipstick. So we got some giallo elements we appreciate.
Yeah.
Though this, of course, is not technically a giallo film, you're going to see a lot of things that remind you of them throughout.
Like all
Okay.
the red.
I mean, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But I love this sequence visually. We've talked about it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's brilliantly done. I did read that this sequence is actually a reference to a film that Mario Bava co-directed in 1959.
Okay.
So it's very kind of sweet when you think of it that way.
Yeah.
And it was, as I had mentioned, one of the scenes filmed in that studio in Rome.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also kind of the start of this building's geography making no fucking sense.
Literally,
Okay.
though.
Which is honestly, for me, adds to that element of dream logic.
Right.
Because you're like, where even is this room to exist? Like, you're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right.
And it just does not make any sense.
Well, isn't when she comes up to the lantern that she was using is knocked over again?
It's broken.
Yeah. So I was like, what, did you even use it? What happened?
Dreams.
It's just going to
Yeah.
be the excuse.
That's all, yeah. But something very interesting that Corti pointed out in his book on the subject of alchemy, with Varelli being an alchemist and it kind of being an important thing in this film, we have all 4 elements becoming really important in this film too. We just saw water in a very important way.
Yeah.
We have the air, which is what he said was the primary key with the smell of these witches.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we just have fire and earth left, which also become very important as well.
Right.
Mm.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But Rose clatters barefoot through the lobby of her apartment building, crossing large pillars of light which stand upright in the center of the black and red walled room. She stands nervously at the elevator, pushing the call button as her eyes dart around, but suddenly a door opens in an adjacent corridor, a light bleeding through as the voice of an unknown woman whispers, "She's been nosing around." And an unknown man responds, "We have to hide it right away."
I love that they're speaking at full volume here.
But their shadows darken the hall as the woman concurs, agreeing that they should hide it all away. Rose creeps away toward another room on the opposite side of the lobby as the man suggests that the woman be careful, as she doesn't want anything changed. Rose puts her back to the wall in the other room, a light fixture beaming brightly overhead, only to begin flickering above her, dipping the room to sporadic darkness. As Rose holds herself tightly, surrounded by red and blue light, a loud crashing sound echoes beneath her, alarming and repetitive, and we dip down below into the cellar, where the once open pool of water at the center of the room is now covered in a mess of wooden beams, staggered and scattered in all angles, concealing the secrets of the flooded floor below.
They said we need to take care of this shit right now.
Hey, they're on it. Gotta give them that.
Yeah. I almost thought Godzilla was outside or something.
But the music swells as the camera presses in on the clutter. But we suddenly cut to a massive tiered classroom at an academy. A music teacher, played by Paolo Paolini, standing at his pulpit in front of a chalkboard, playing the music that we heard moments ago for his students, who occupy the curved wooden aisles around and above him.
When I was a kid, I thought that all college classes looked like this.
Yeah.
No shit. It wasn't. I finally found, I think I had one class that was like this in my entire university career.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell? I've been so lied to by mass media.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you think, because that's what all they always show on TV and movies.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, because it looks way cooler
It
than
does.
just some
For
fucking
sure.
chairs.
Yeah.
You know? But we get on-screen text reading, Rome, April, as the teacher explains that what his students are listening to is the famous Va Pensiero chorus, part 3 of Giuseppe Verdi's Nabucco. As he scribbles this in large letters on the chalkboard, the song emanates from a record player inside of a huge console parked between 2 towering marble busts. The camera pans across the rows of stacked seating, the students all wearing large white pairs of headphones, as a chorus of voices harmonize, and we find Mark Elliott, Rose's brother, played by Lee McCloskey, sat in his seat and following along with the sheet music opened in front of him.
So Lee McCloskey, I did see he did a lot of TV. He did a lot of old TV shows, or older TV shows, should I say. I did see that he was in Just One of the Guys in 85 and Gone But Not Forgotten in 05. Just One of the Guys I've seen when I was younger, and I've only seen it once. So I don't really remember what's going on. But I do know that I've seen it.
Fair enough.
I read that he was the second choice for this role. The first one declined to do The Onion Field instead, but it was James Woods.
Good Lord.
What?
Yep.
I will say one thing. I don't know this man.
Yeah.
But and because I don't want to say anything mean, but this performance is forgettable
Yeah.
to me.
No.
James Woods is a scumbag piece of shit.
Yeah.
But he gives memorable performances.
He does.
Yeah.
And I'm not, that's all I'll say.
I feel like this would have been very different. Or
It would have been.
The parts with Mark.
Yeah. Well, I think it would even, and again, like you said, James Woods fucked the guy.
Right.
But I feel like at least you're right. He has some personality to him to where if he's doing it, it's like, oh, I know that guy.
Yeah.
This dude feels, and again, no disrespect to this man, but it does feel like it's very replaceable with any other person, and it's okay.
Replaceable that's fair.
Yeah.
It's just bland. Like, but Mark doesn't have any personality.
No.
So I mean, it might not even necessarily be him. It's just like, but I feel like James Woods would bring something even if there wasn't anything,
Right.
especially like 1980. James Woods.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Yeah, this whole character is like, why did you write to him? I know that's your brother, but
Do you have any other friends?
A cousin.
anyone.
But Sarah, played by Eleonora Georgi, arrives late to class, finding her seat next to Mark, who helps her find the proper place in the sheet music as she rushes to put her headphones on. We pan across the front of the music hall, the teacher turning the pages of his music as the record spins behind him and the music swells. Mark, however, wipes the sleep from his eyes, struggling to stay awake, but something catches his attention on one of the rows in front of him. One of his classmates sits there, with her back to him, not wearing her headphones, her long hair obscuring the sides of her face as her deep red fingernails scratch through the soft fur of a cat that rests on the desk in front of her. We all wanted to bring our cats to class. It's fine.
Yes. Well,
So
I
I
was
get
like,
it.
is this her cat or like a class cat or like?
Whatever the circumstances are, I'm happy.
Yeah.
And again, cats keep popping up a lot in this film.
Yeah.
When I saw the cat here, I was like, are they like harbingers almost? Because that's when she saw the cats and then she went down into the thing.
Okay.
So I'm like, does seeing this cat again mean that some shit's about to pop off, or are there just a lot of cats in this movie?
I figured that this isn't a normal student because we have the cat.
Right.
Right.
So I'm just waiting for something to happen.
And she's
now.
not listening to the music either.
No. And I will say there are no mentions of her true identity in this film.
Yeah.
But there are several clues that lead you to a conclusion. And there are some credits, depending on where you look, that give her a pretty interesting title that we'll talk about in just a bit.
Okay.
But Mark looks around a bit before retrieving a pale yellow envelope from the pocket of his jacket, the letter that Rose mailed to him from New York City. After reading the address written by his sister's hand on the front, he tears it open. But just as he reaches for the folded letter inside, Mark looks up to find the mysterious music student, played by Anya Pironi, now turned to face him, the cat resting in her lap and her piercing green eyes staring right through him.
The cat was staring too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm like, what are you doing? Now's the perfect time to read this personal letter. I'm like, what are you doing?
I don't know what his morning looked like.
Yeah.
It's very odd to find this letter and just throw it in your pocket.
Yeah.
I'll read it during class.
But you're right, because he just helped his classmate find where she needed to be.
Yes.
But then you're like, no, it's okay. I'm ahead.
Yeah.
And just start reading.
Seriously?
Yeah.
And we recognize Anya Pironi.
Yes.
Tenebrae.
Yeah.
But Mark shifts uneasily as the chorus continues, and after a moment, he finally returns his eyes to the unfolded letter in front of him. He reads, "My dear brother Mark, as you know, here in New York, I've been living in a rather old building for quite some time." He glances around the room a bit, an odd feeling seeming to overtake him, and we cut suddenly to a tight shot of the unblinking stare of the woman seated in front of him. In time with the chorus, the shot grows wider around her as her eyes remain fixed on Mark, and even the cat in her lap lifts its head to look up at him as well. Mark can't seem to look away from her as she gazes intently at him, her shining red lips beginning to enunciate sharp words that Mark can't hear over the music in his headphones. Sarah takes notice of his discomfort as he fidgets in the seat next to her. But above them, a window suddenly bursts open behind long white drapes, and an eerie wind blows through them and past the mysterious woman, directly for Mark in his seat. Her eyebrows furrowed and her hair whipping in the breeze, the woman's gaze continues unwavering. As Mark appears transfixed on her, Sarah chuckles, turning the page of Mark's sheet music for him, as he's been far too distracted to keep up himself.
I'm just like, how do you not notice that this dude is like
Yeah.
having a moment? She's like, silly.
It's like, we're on this page. It's like, dude, I'd be like, does anybody notice this woman? This,
Yeah, it's that.
this lady with the cat who is just like looking at me.
Is this a ghost?
And if Mark can only see her, how does that look to
Yeah.
the rest of the students?
Yeah.
He's just like losing it. But Mark stashes his sister's letter back into its envelope and looks over at the mysterious woman once more, but she's turned away from him again, petting her cat, which has returned to its perch on the desk in front of her. We press into the hair on the back of the woman's head as the chorus finally reaches its end, and the students, including Mark, remove their headphones. As the class rises from their seats, gathering their belongings to leave the room, Mark looks over to the spot where the mysterious woman had been seated, only to discover her desk to be empty, with no sign of her or her feline friend ever having been there. But at the top of the tiered classroom seating, we watch as the mysterious woman ascends to the top of the stairs in the aisle, cradling her cat and turning to face Mark one more time before she creeps away toward the exit. I have to admit, I laughed out loud at this moment.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, she's disappeared. Like, oh, no, she's right there.
She's right. She's leaving.
It's like, all right, I guess.
You're not a ghost.
No. But Mark leaves the classroom in a hurry, leaving behind not only his sheet music, but the letter that Rose wrote him. We arc around Sarah as she stands from her chair, discovering the envelope and picking it up. But the score becomes frenzied as we cut to later that night, heavy rain flooding the evening streets of Rome. Sarah sits in the back seat of a yellow taxi as the driver, played by Fulvio Mengozzi, navigates his way through the storm. I read Mengozzi was kind of what they called a good luck charm for Argento,
Okay.
and he put him in a lot of films. But the interesting thing is that he played the cab driver in Suspiria.
Oh, I love that.
So it's kind of like, how connected are we?
Yeah.
But you might remember him as Alboreto in Tenebrae.
Yeah.
I think he was the apartment owner.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
But as drums pound and a guitar solo howls in the score, red and yellow traffic lights glow through the window and the blue darkness of the rain surrounding the cab.
Since you mentioned the score here,
Yes.
do you remember Sonic the Hedgehog?
We've been doing a lot of Sonic today.
I know. This one was written down. The first one was Off the Dome, but I guess I'm just thinking about Sonic.
Uh-huh.
Chemical Plant Zone.
Oh, yeah.
That is this.
Someone ripped off.
It reminded me so much of that level.
I will tell you the very interesting thing is that whenever Emerson and Argento were talking about the score, that song that we heard in the classroom, Va Pensiero,
Yeah.
Argento wanted a prog rock version of that song in this film,
Okay.
but he wanted it at a different time signature to kind of make it feel off-center and make you unsettled.
Mm-hmm.
And so he didn't know when Emerson was going to put that, like what scene he was wanting to put it in.
Yeah.
And so he saw this scene whenever everything was put together, and it was this song, and it took Argento time to even recognize it. But this is that composition that we heard in the classroom.
Oh, wow. And we
Oh,
just
okay.
heard it.
Yeah.
And it, you know, without being told, I wouldn't know that.
Not at
No.
all. No,
But-
it's Chemical Plant Zone.
Yeah. But as the headlights of a motorist behind the cab beam through the back window, casting a halo around Sarah, she reaches into her bag to retrieve Mark's letter. She takes it upon herself to open the envelope and unfold the letter to read it. But worry washes over her like the rainwater pouring down the exterior of the cab as she reads much further than Mark did in the classroom. She abruptly asks the driver to take her elsewhere, 49 Via de Bagni. The driver whips a U-turn through the rain, and Sarah reaches for the handle to roll down the window a bit. But as soon as she does, she rolls the glass back up to the top immediately, remarking, "What a strange smell. Sickly sweet."
Is there a Cheesecake Factory?
Yeah.
The driver's like, "Yeah, we just passed it." I will say something very interesting is this is basically a recreation of the taxi scene in Suspiria.
Yeah.
The shots of her in the back, the lighting around her, very similarly, the primary colors.
The rain.
The rain. Now, I don't know why the fuck she rolled down the window in the rain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He leans his head. He's like, "Hey, roll that back up." I don't care how it smells.
Why
We're not
everything's
doing
going to
that.
get wet back there.
Yeah.
No, that's ridiculous.
But the taxi parks in front of large stone steps leading up to an arched entryway where a doorman stands waiting. We get tight insert shots of a sign out front reading Via de Bagni, the building number 49. And as the rain hammers down upon the vehicle, a sign marking the Abertney Foundation Philosophical Library inside. There's also a very pretty purple light over a fountain outside.
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me a lot of a shot in Blood and Black Lace.
Okay.
Mario Bava again.
Yeah.
Wondering if it's like a tribute or whatever.
Yeah.
But the other thing that's interesting is, if I'm not mistaken, the building number to the apartment building in New York is also 49.
Ah.
So it's kind of this feeling of everything being connected again.
Right.
And it's 13.
Oh, shit.
Oh, all right.
Bad luck.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they say.
That's what I've heard. But Sarah opens the door to brave the rain outside, but as she reaches to close the door, a sharp nail sticks out of the side of it, puncturing her finger. She winces in pain as the taxi speeds away, blood pouring from the tip of her finger, which she promptly sucks. So she's evil.
She's evil now, unfortunately.
Was that his plan the whole time, just for her to cut herself on the door?
He's like, "I need a little blood."
Because the music was pretty funky the whole way over there.
It was.
And then to end like that, and she's just like, "Oh shit, I cut myself." I was like, was that the whole lead up?
Yeah.
The car ride for this?
So what I read, and is honestly really cool,
Yeah.
is, we talked about a lot of it being kind of like this dark fairy tale.
Mm-hmm.
Suspiria pulled from a lot of different fairy tale imagery,
Okay.
and also Snow White for the color palette.
Yeah.
And so it's only fitting for this film to continue in that direction. But the thing about the pricking of the finger is supposed to be a reference to Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the interesting thing about it is, she pricks her finger and then she falls into that deep sleep.
Yeah.
This is supposed to signify for Sarah her pricking her finger and her nightmare beginning.
Okay.
Oh, all right.
I
all
like
right.
that.
Yeah.
But the camera circles around her, capturing the emptiness of the street as she stands in the center, drenched in rain as she continues to hold her finger in her mouth. She slowly ascends the stone staircase of the library, stumbling into the wall of the archway at the front entrance. The uncredited doorman asks her what's wrong, but Sarah just tells him that it's nothing as she breezes right past him and into the red light of the foyer inside. She continues onward through the dark of the front entrance, past an uncredited attendant and rows of dark cabinets to reach a red curtain at the end of a corridor. She parts the curtain to enter the sprawling library proper, the walls lined with towering shelves of antique text up to the ceiling, the center of the room carved out and filled with desks lit by lamps with rows of leather seating.
This place is fucking gorgeous.
Yeah. And is she allowed in there?
She just walked in.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Well, the guy was like, "What's wrong?" She's like, "Shut up."
No, it's a beautiful library.
Yeah.
I read that the interiors were actually filmed at the Biblioteca Angelica in Rome.
Oh, okay.
So it is a real library.
Wow.
But I think that the exteriors are a completely different building.
Again, seamless though.
Yeah, that is one thing I couldn't tell.
And I love the look of this architecture.
Yeah.
But inside the library, as Sarah passes these desks, an old man sits reading a book and paying her no mind, while a young woman played by Anna Valentino looks up from her text to smile at her. I will say that this smile seemed knowing.
Yeah.
It seemed like threatening to me.
Mm.
Or at least I know what you're doing.
Yeah, which is too much.
Yeah.
But an ominous organ echoes in the score as Sarah peers up to the white vaulted ceiling past the tall shelves of books at the other side of the room. She inches her way over to a small set of shelves just past the reading desks, and an old man, played by Rodolfo Lodi, stands there in a suit and asks if she's looking for something. Sarah responds defensively, instinctively replying, "No!" before softening and amending her answer to yes.
Why are you being so rude? And I have a feeling that what you need is going to be over there in those red books.
Yeah, dude. There is a red light carving a very specific section. But she tells the old man that she's looking for an old book, The Three Mothers. And the old man directs Sarah to that shelf just behind her. And there, she finds a copy of Varelli's The Three Mothers. Here is something that is like anybody who has ever gone to a library, you know how things are sectioned.
Yeah.
You know, it's this genre, this group of books, this name of author in alphabetical.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, this book is here, and you look at the books next to it, it does not belong on this shelf.
Yeah, okay.
So that's pretty creepy as well.
Yeah.
But Sarah thanks the old man, who doesn't reply, as he just walks away with the use of a wooden cane. She snags the book from the shelf, flipping backwards through the pages until she reaches the beginning and reads the preface, which is not only in English now, but offers different text than what Rose read in her copy in New York. It declares the book neither fiction nor a work of imagination, but rather fragments of a diary discovered among the personal papers of Emilio Varelli, who happens to be a friend of whoever wrote this preface, as well as an architect and highly respected alchemist. The preface continues that Varelli disappeared under mysterious circumstances many years ago, and whoever wrote this preface and assembled this book expresses his hope that this diary may bring clarity to the reasons behind Varelli's strange death. Sarah is interrupted and startled by a wooden door swinging open nearby, but she collects herself to finish reading that since the diary was written in Latin, it has also been published in that form as well. But a harsh whisper suddenly cuts through the silence of the library. Sarah.
Nope, we read this at home.
Yeah,
Nah,
no, we
let's
don't
go
read
there.
it at all.
Well, I mean, at least we're safe at home.
I don't know what the fuck Mark is doing. I'm reading his mail. Like, this truly has nothing to fucking do with me.
I've already committed a felony.
Yeah.
So
Just keep going.
yeah,
I'm breaking my finger. Like it's gone too far.
we're off the deep end.
Yeah.
But she glances around nervously as an unseen eye spies her through a panning shot on the other side of the bookshelf, whispering her name again and again. But Sarah is frightened once more when the chime of a bell rings out as an uncredited library attendant announces that it's closing time. Sarah shuts the book in her hands, carrying it with her as she follows a sign leading down a set of steps to the library's exit, the music rising around her in the score. I don't like that at all.
No.
No.
What the hell is this
like,
exit?
Yeah.
And her stealing the book.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that too. Well,
Yeah,
she's
that's
already...
That's what I was mad about.
I was mad about the fact that we came in through that door on this level over there.
Yeah.
Why are we descending deeper into the bowels of this hell library?
Yeah, I didn't understand that.
I don't get it either. But at the bottom of the steps, Sarah finds a corridor of white walls and arched ceilings. But upon hearing low whispers emanating from nearby, she stands startled against the wall before rushing through the red light of a spiral staircase to descend to the floor below.
It was cool because the lighting was blue.
Yeah.
And then when she went over here, it turned red. And it's like, oh, I don't think you should be going over there.
She reaches a storage room, brightly lit by overhead lamps and filled with cabinets and sloppily stocked shelves. The shadows of cats are cast through the curved windows above as they dart by outside, and Sarah continues toward a door at the end of the hall, looking over her shoulder suspiciously when she reaches it. Another door rests open on the right side of the hall, but Sarah chooses the door to the left, where a bright light emanates through the opaque divider. When she pushes the door open, she discovers rows of desks lining the walls of a room, each stacked with books, along with boiling pots at their centers, each boiling a beige-colored solution.
It is getting to be soup weather. It was raining outside.
That's a lot of soup.
Yeah. I figured they were making candles or soap or some shit down there.
I don't know. But the camera presses through the flames and past the cluttered tables to find a bookbinder, played by Luigi Filippo Lodoli, huddled in the corner at the far end of the room, hard at work on a restoration. Sarah calls out as she slowly creeps toward him, the camera capturing tight shots of the manuscripts and fire that surround her. She politely asks the man to help her find the way out, and without looking at her, he simply responds, "The other door." Sarah accepts this, but through a mirror at his workstation, the bookbinder spies the book that Sarah clutches closely to her, and the music shrieks as we press in sharply on the reflection of the book's title. Sarah attempts to hide it behind her back, but it's far too late.
It's too late!
And the bookbinder steps slowly away from his station, removing his thick leather gloves to reveal the hairy, long-fingered hands beneath them as the piano plods suspensefully in the score. These hands remind me a lot of Helena Marcus in Suspiria.
Oh,
okay.
I can definitely see that. I was going to say I finally watched The Substance and we're not respecting the balance. That's what it reminded me of.
Every 7. Sarah attempts to flee, but the bookbinder seizes her, clutching the back of her neck and forcing her face towards the boiling contents of a nearby pot. Sarah shrieks as she struggles against his strength, and he harshly rasps, "The book!" Her face pressing closer and closer to the liquid inside the pot, Sarah is finally able to break away from the bookbinder, throwing the book to the ground and running for the exit. As soon as she leaves, the bookbinder retrieves the text from the floor. But Sarah rushes feverishly through 2 glass doors leading to the outside world, but when she attempts to escape through the third, her blouse gets caught on the handle. She tries desperately to pull herself free as she spies the bookbinder approaching her through the glass doors of the corridor. The music rises tensely as he finally reaches her, but before he can seize her, she's able to tear the cloth of her blouse to break free and flee through the 4th and final door. The bookbinder stands faceless in shadow as Sarah runs as fast as she can through the empty streets of Rome. I don't know what or why we would ever need a hallway like this.
No.
But it does build a pretty cool moment of suspense.
It does. The thing for me is you could have pulled that piece of cloth off of that really quick.
Yeah.
It's well made.
I was surprised that she made it out.
Yeah.
And I thought it was kind of bold of her to be stealing that book and to wander in there and be like, "Hello, can you?" It's like,
That's true. Hello, employee of this library.
But that's a lot, too, to mush your face into some burning whatever.
Yeah.
Don't steal the library books.
So, lesson learned.
Yeah.
It's a cautionary tale. I will say this again. This is what I'm talking about with things feeling like a dark fairy tale.
Right.
Her venturing underground and finding this like monster
Yeah.
that chases her out. But the other thing that kind of doesn't reconcile with itself is from what we have established here.
Right.
This book is rare as fuck and it should not be falling into anyone's hands.
Right.
Yeah.
We have this copy in New York that Rose found,
Mm-hmm.
this copy that kind of magically put itself in front of Sarah.
Right.
And the fact that they have it is not good.
Yeah. That is true. If it's so hard, why is it still out there everywhere? Or why is it showing up everywhere?
This is a great question, and there's one moment that makes me laugh out loud because it totally just ruins all of it. But Sarah arrives home in a taxi, and after paying the driver, she rushes across the street for the safety of her apartment building. She makes her way inside, where she heads straight for the elevator, passing pedestrians on her way. Carlo, played by Gabriel Lavia, joins her inside, and Sarah cowers against the wall, hesitating against her own fear when he asks which floor she's getting off on. After a moment, she finally tells him the 4th floor, to which he smiles and presses the number for her floor and his. As the elevator ascends the levels of the building, Carlo looks over at Sarah, discovering that she's soaking wet, and he can't help himself as he steals a cheeky glance through the opening in her torn blouse, before darting his eyes away with a nervous smirk.
This woman is clearly going through something.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he's like, hold the fort.
Yeah.
My only note is, do you know this man?
I don't know that she does.
Yeah.
I don't either, which I was like, a decision she makes. I'm
Yeah.
like, you are bold.
Yeah.
I honestly, and we'll get to it in a second, I didn't think they were going where,
No.
No, yeah.
you know? But when the doors slide open and Carlo approaches them to make his exit, Sarah stops him from leaving. He stands confused, but offers his help to her if there's anything that he can do. She admits that she's afraid and that she doesn't want to be alone right now, to which Carlo replies that he has nothing else to do for the next couple of hours and is willing to keep her company. So I thought they were going to go to a coffee shop or something.
Yeah.
But we cut to Sarah's gorgeous apartment, large and surprisingly lavish for an academy student, I will say.
Yeah.
But Carlo joins her inside, and the two gather together in the living room. He makes small talk, learning that she's a music student and sharing that he's a sports writer for television. But Sarah, wearing a change of clothes, approaches her record player near the wall, but stops, turning to face Carlo and asking permission to pose a strange question to him. When he simply answers, "How strange," Sarah asks if he's ever heard of the 3 sisters. Not even the title of the book, but
You're right.
Yeah.
she's frazzled. Carlo replies, "You mean those black singers?" Not great.
That's why.
Yeah.
But Sarah corrects him. She's talking about mythology, the triad. Carlo, however, laughs this off, admitting his skepticism of anything supernatural, even refusing to engage in any philosophical discussions on the matter. Which is pretty fucked up as far as conversation goes. It's like, I don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah. And I just invited you back to my house.
Yeah.
We're hanging
Yeah.
out. You can't even humor me?
No, and I told you I'm afraid.
Yeah.
It's clear that this is connected to what I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Sarah asks him what he does believe in, and with a sly smile, Carlo answers, "In whatever I can see and touch."
Carlo really thought tonight was going to go in a different direction, I think.
I'm struggling against the joke that I really want to make. Because there is penetration.
There is.
But Carlo takes a seat on Sarah's sofa as she doesn't respond. Rather, she drops the needle on her record player, which plays Verdi's Va Pensiero, the same composition from today's class. She notes that Carlo probably knows it, as her eyes move slowly across the room and the music rises, but just as it swells, we get a shot of the cloud-covered moon through Sarah's opened window. I loved this shot very much.
It's beautiful.
Each time the music sounds, the moon grows closer and clearer.
Yeah.
I was very surprised whenever we see the moon in this film, and we saw it earlier when we were looking up from the cellar into the sky at Rose. The moon is a matte painting created on glass by Mario Bava.
Wow.
That's really cool.
Right? But Sarah retires to her bedroom as the music continues in the living room, snagging a telephone and sitting on her bed to dial a phone number. She reaches Mark, finally alerting him to the fact that he left his sister's letter at the academy. As Carlo leafs through some magazines on Sarah's coffee table, she asks Mark if he's read the letter, and when she learns that he hasn't, she demands that he does, telling him that it's very important.
I have a couple things here.
Yeah.
Her being like, you didn't read the letter? Well, I did. And you need to is hilarious.
Yeah.
And also when we cut back to her and she's on the phone with Mark, I thought Carlo had gone home.
Oh, no.
And then we cut to him just sitting on the
Yeah.
couch. She's not even in the room with them. She's like, well, if you don't want to talk about it, I'm gonna call Mark. That was hilarious to me.
Hey, he missed his chance to talk.
He did.
I will say, though, that it is funny that she can't just read him the letter over the phone.
So you need to come read it.
Yeah, that's true.
But all right. She suggests that he come over to her apartment right now so that she can tell him what happened to her today. Again, something that she could tell him over the phone. I don't know.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm scared, and Carlo is not helping.
But we suddenly cut to a pair of black-gloved hands hovering over a brightly lit desk, spreading apart a paper doll chain of 4 girls, their shape cut from thick black paper. The hands turn the chain sideways and reach for a pair of scissors resting in front of them, seizing the neck of the first figure in the blades. Upon slicing the first paper head off, we cut to a shot of a small lizard resting on a brick walkway with a white moth fluttering to no avail as it seized in the lizard's jaws. Upon severing the second paper head, we cut to a woman hanging by a noose at her neck and kicking feverishly until life slips away from her. When the third and fourth heads are severed, we return to Sarah's apartment building, the camera zooming into her window from outside. The implications, holy shit, that's really cool.
Yeah.
It's very striking, and you're like, what the hell does this have to do with a lizard eating a moth?
Yeah, I didn't.
But when you think about what we learn at the end, what Varelli said about all 3 mothers bearing one name,
Yeah.
Right.
this is that in action.
Okay.
But in Sarah's room, a lamp next to her bed begins to flicker, the sound of the record player cutting out every time the room dips to darkness. Carlo sits puzzled in the living room, and when Sarah calls out to him, asking what's going on, he assumes it to be an overload on the wires. When the flickering of sound and light continue, Carlo shouts to Sarah in the other room, wondering where the main fuse box is, and she directs him to the storeroom at the end of the hall, but pleads with him not to go there. Carlo assures her that he just wants to check the fuses, and he tells her not to worry. So Sarah allows this, but she instructs Carlo to keep talking to her as he does so that she can know where he is at all times. He assures her that he will, but we watch in a POV shot as Carlo creeps through the long, dark hallway in silence, passing marble statues of cherubs to reach the door at the end of the hall. She asked you one thing, dude.
I will say, though, he has no fear.
No.
He's not worried. This is normal. Flickering off and on. I was like, what?
I would already be worried because of the way that we found her.
Yeah.
Or like the way that she was acting before, and then she's acting weird, and then she's gone off to her bedroom to make a phone call. Like, oh, this is weird. Yeah, he doesn't give a fuck.
Honestly, now, and he had said, of course, he doesn't believe in the supernatural. So that's probably another reason why he's just going through it's an electrical problem.
Yeah.
But just the same, you don't know her.
No,
Yeah,
not at
yeah.
all.
She's like, she's on the phone. She's like, he's here. We can kill and eat him tonight or whatever. We don't know you.
Yeah. And if she left to the room, that's like you're saying, you're on the phone. Then the lights start going off and on. Oh, no.
She's like, press the button,
Yeah.
honey, or whatever.
And she's like, I'm not scared, but I'm not going with you.
No, either. That's true. But Sarah, growing fearful, cries out for Carlo, who after a moment answers that he's made it to the storeroom and is fiddling with the fuse box. Sarah, unwilling to wait alone in her bedroom in the dark, rushes into the living room, accidentally knocking over a glass on her way into the hall. It shatters on the floor, startling Sarah, and the light and music continue flashing intermittently, but Carlo announces proudly from behind the door that he thinks he might have fixed it. Sarah enters the room nervously, stopping at a small set of steps that lead to the fuse box and calling out to Carlo in the dark. But suddenly, Carlo lurches out from the darkness, a serrated kitchen knife plunged into his neck and piercing through the other side, blood pouring from his mouth as the chorus on the record player sings harmoniously. That happened so fast because he just called out to her.
Yes!
I was like, what the hell?
I was not expecting that.
No.
And I'm like, what was the thought process here? I'm just going to fuck with somebody's going to come and check the breaker.
Well, he got him to separate.
Yeah.
You fixed the lights for me. Now I'm gonna dispose of you.
Right.
I can see again.
Fair.
Yeah. It's really a win-win.
But Carlo reaches for Sarah, pulling her to the ground with him, and as he looms over her, blood spills from his mouth, coating Sarah's fresh new clothes crimson as Carlo's eyes struggle to make sense of what's happened. Sarah screams violently as she struggles against Carlo's grasp, finally able to wriggle away from his wrenching hands and the weight of his body. But through the dark, a black-gloved hand reaches for the handle of the knife in Carlo's throat, removing it roughly as Carlo crumbles to the floor, dead. The attacker then drives the blade into the spine of the escaping Sarah, and she shrieks, collapsing to the ground and reaching for the fresh wound in her back. She crawls bloody up the steps, but to no avail, as the attacker closes the door to the storeroom, sealing her only exit as well as her fate. And again, I was surprised here because we are switching so constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah clearly is a much more interesting person than Mark is.
Right.
And so to see her die like this so quickly after meeting her.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you think about it, there was the character Sarah in Suspiria that was also friends with the protagonist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who also died pretty violently. Pretty violently. That was a wild one.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, maybe it's a little thing there as well. Maybe the witches hate people named Sarah. The names of snakes, if you recall.
I remember.
He really fucked her over, though.
Yeah.
He's like, no, wait, die with me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, dude, what do you get off me?
It's wild that he really is the one that sealed her fate.
Yeah.
That's crazy, dude. But it's at this moment that Mark arrives, stepping off the elevator on Sarah's floor and making his way down the hall to her apartment, where the front door rests open, ajar. Calling out for Sarah, Mark lets himself inside, alerting her of his arrival and peering into her bedroom. But when his eyes drift to the carpeted floor below, he discovers torn scraps of Rose's letter. All that remains are 4 disjointed sections. My dear brother Mark, the house I live in. The 3rd key is under the soles of your shoes. Kazanian. That's more than enough to crack this case wide open.
Yeah.
But surprisingly, Mark takes him a while. But he stashes the fragments of the letter away in his jacket pocket again, and he finds the shards of glass that Sarah shattered accidentally on her way to the storeroom. He kneels down, investigating them, before setting them back down onto the carpet. He then rises to his feet, but stands puzzled when he notices something pressing against the opposite side of a thin partition in the wall. The camera presses in on the slight indentation as Mark inches forward, the synth in the score sizzling suspensefully. We then see 2 hands pressing forward from the other side until they tear through completely, and to Mark's shock and horror, Sarah shreds through the partition, leaving it in ribbons as she collapses screaming to the floor in a bloody heap. Mark wears a look of disgust on his face, which is an odd choice acting-wise.
Yeah.
I said it's really like light work, no reaction. He sees this every day. He's just like,
you live like this?
Yeah, it's annoying.
But he bends down to inspect her body and does not seem to have any reaction beyond that.
None.
No. I really liked her tearing through that. It reminded me of Freddy. I know this was before, but it did remind me of that, and I was like, that's really cool.
That I didn't even think of the comparison.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. But sometime later, the police arrive at the apartment building, their lights flashing as officers gather, rushing in and out of the building to tend to the crime scene upstairs. Mark staggers out of the front entrance, stumbling in a stupor into the street. His eyes sit unfocused in his head, but when he finally returns to himself, he lifts his gaze to catch a glimpse of a black car speeding by right in front of him. And in the back seat sits the mysterious music student from earlier, her green eyes gazing through the window directly at Mark as the car disappears into the night. So I will say it is, again, it's not explicitly stated in the film itself who this student is.
Yeah.
But in the credits and in different interviews, it is supposed to be Mater Lacrimarum.
Okay.
And so this is one of the three mothers that was watching him in class.
Oh.
And as she goes by, she had a hand clearly in Sarah's murder.
Okay.
And Carlo, I guess, to a lesser extent.
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
I don't care. But I thought it was interesting because they did say Freiburg, Germany,
Right.
New York, and Rome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this whole time we've been in Rome. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of there to piece together, but it's not said explicitly.
Right.
But Mark continues through the crowd gathered outside as an off-screen voice interrogates him, asking if he knows what happened. Mark answers in a low, monotone voice that he doesn't know anything. When he arrived, she was already dead. And Mark is never questioned about anything. This ends the involvement of law enforcement. But Mark returns to his apartment, putting in a call to Rose on the telephone. The connection is imperfect, but Rose expresses relief to finally receive a call from her brother, pleading to know if he got her letter. Mark shares that he did, but admits that he didn't get a chance to read it. And to Rose's confusion, Mark reveals that a lot has happened tonight. Which it has, but
It has.
come on, dude.
But I didn't understand why she didn't just call him in the first place.
Yeah, that is true. They're old-fashioned.
In our family, we write letters.
Did my pigeon get to you yet?
Yeah.
It's like, what?
I don't know. But a crackling noise breaks through the call, forcing Mark to shout out for his sister to respond to him. Rose finally returns on the line, suggesting for Mark to come to New York right away, adding in a plea, "Do you care anything about me?" Mark, however, grows frustrated, and despite us being able to hear Rose very clearly, he tells his sister that he can't hear a thing and demands to know what's going on. It's like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
You are inept as fuck.
Well, it doesn't get any better.
No. Rose repeats herself succinctly, begging Mark to promise that he'll come to New York right away, which Mark agrees to. But when he seemingly attempts to add a caveat, the call disconnects. And I don't know what else he could say. He goes, but there's... It's like,
Yeah.
He's like, you better put me up somewhere nice.
yeah. First class on the...
Yeah, that's that.
Have your pigeon meet me at the airport. But in her apartment in New York, Rose feverishly presses the switch hook on her telephone, calling out to her brother and slamming her receiver down when she gets no response from him. We then get on-screen text reading, New York, the same night in April. It's like, yeah,
That was
we
that
know.
was funny. To me.
But a rustling noise disturbs Rose, causing her to creep cautiously through the eerie green light of her hallway, where she stands looking left and right, attempting to pinpoint the source of the noise. A bright white light shines through the ornately carved window of a black door at the end of the hall, from which a pair of whispers are heard. One voice urges the other to listen, and the other answers in the affirmative. But as Rose approaches the door, two silhouettes are carved out of the light as they lean in closer to the window, and Rose stops dead in her tracks when the unknown figures begin picking the lock of her door, whispering a confident, "Here we go."
What the fuck?
It's wild.
Yeah.
It is hilarious, but it is frightening that this is this also just happened in Rome.
Yeah.
So this happening here at the same time, like there's a lot going on and it's all connected.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, when you think about it, I'm trying to think if this is literally all the same as what happened to Rose in the cellar too.
Yeah.
Like this is no time has passed at all.
No.
Well, but then it would have to have because she mailed the letter the same night. So it's been a few days that she's been hanging low.
At least, actually.
So never mind.
Because that letter had to get all the way to Rome.
That's right.
Mark does not check his mailbox
No,
every day.
no.
Like, he definitely doesn't.
He gets notices, I'm sure. But Rose runs to the other side of her apartment, wrenching open a door so frantically that she breaks its glass doorknob, slicing the palm of her hand open in the process. She creeps into the hall just outside of the back entrance to her apartment, backing into a large white curtain and leaving a bloody handprint behind as she pulls it open, revealing another door behind it, which leads to a staircase. But inside her apartment, the two figures have made their way to her study, discovering her copy of The Three Mothers resting on her desk, as well as the broken doorknob that clattered to the floor in her frenzied exit. Terse piano mars the score as we're taken outside, snowfall coating the street, the raspberry light of the street lamps cast against the ominous apartment building.
I loved that piano.
Yeah. I love that shot, too, of the outside.
Yeah.
But Rose, however, has vacated the building entirely, seeking refuge in a nearby structure which stands dilapidated, the camera finding her from outside as it presses into a brightly lit window. Rose peers over the railing of a staircase as she makes her way down cautiously, but she stops fearfully when the shadow of a figure is cast through the large windows of the doors at the bottom of the steps. The figure leans down to peer through a slat, the score shrieking as their yellow eyes spy Rose, causing her to rush back upstairs. This is another thing that happened in Suspiria as well whenever Sarah was trying to get away from who was chasing her.
Yeah.
And we see just in the darkness a hidden figure and just yellow eyes just burst open.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's like, again, these three witches, it's very similar the way that they operate.
Yeah.
I was very surprised when she ran in here. I was like, where the fuck did you run to?
The most haunted building I could find. I don't know. But we follow Rose through white curtains and hanging ceiling fragments as she dips into an adjacent corridor. But the camera whips around to find the silhouette of the figure approaching the hanging curtains that Rose just passed. Rose continues onward, startled when a bird flies by right in front of her in the hall, lightning flashing and thunder crackling all around her. Is that her male bird?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Because I was like, even the bird's like, get the fuck out of here. Like, what are you doing in here?
But I've been looking for you everywhere.
As her pursuer traces her footsteps, Rose rushes through a flashing red light on the other end of the hall, where she finds the door to what used to be a laboratory, letting herself inside. Might be doing too much, which I often do. But I feel like that red light flashing like that, it reminded me a lot of the flashing green light in the Drop of Water segment of Black Sabbath.
Okay.
Ooh.
And I'm like, are we just filling this with homages to Bava? That's fine.
Could
Yeah.
be. Man, that segment was so good.
Yeah.
But Rose inches her way across the hardwood floor, surveying the cobwebbed lab, varying colors of light cast over her, until she makes her way to the other side.
It is funny to me, John Paul, that you mentioned Nightmare on Elm Street, because this room
Mhm.
feels like somewhere that a nightmare in Nightmare on Elm Street would take place.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I don't know where she ran into.
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
did Freddy Krueger set this up?
Yeah.
Because that's literally what it looks like.
It's terrifying. I would feel like I fucked up.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to get away from something, but I think I wandered in somewhere bad.
Rose is startled when she steps on some kind of lizard statue, I guess. It took me aback a second, but then I thought about the cutting of the paper dolls.
Oh, yeah.
that little montage.
Yeah. And so I was like, maybe that's foreshadowing her death.
Right.
But she quickly recovers, walking toward another corridor, a red light beaming through a far window just across the blue darkness of the path in front of her. A voice vocalizes eerily in the score, the notes echoing and oscillating like a theremin. And Rose enters the room, decrepit furniture stacked in a pile at one side, and rain pouring onto the floor through the broken glass of the window at the other end. Rose approaches the window slowly, but takes a step backward when her shoe reaches the pool of rainwater that's collected beneath her. But just then, the glass door of a nearby cabinet swings open on its own, bursting right in front of Rose, which causes her to retreat fearfully through the corridor and back into the lab. The storm rages around her, lightning flashing and scattered shots capturing the emptiness of the deserted building. But suddenly, the window of a nearby door partially shatters, the remaining glass hanging from the top, a vacancy of blackness beneath it. Rose's eyes peer all around her as she creeps toward the door, peering into the darkness and turning back around when she sees that there's nothing there. But just as she does, a pair of withered hands reach for her from the other side, seizing her face as she screams and the music grows frenzied. Her attacker brings her head down backwards into a series of sharp nails that stick upward from the base of the window, Rose's eyes gazing upward fearfully at the remnants of the glass above her. It slides down slowly as Rose screams, her eyes peering through the claws of the figure holding her down. The sheet of glass reaches Rose, stopping just at her throat, but her attacker then clutches the top of it, raising it higher, before bringing it down forcefully like the blade of a guillotine. The attacker brings it down again and again, as Rose's blood splatters and she claws weakly at the sharp window embedded in her throat, and her life slips away.
God damn.
They really wanted her dead.
Yeah, they did.
And we do cut away very quickly from that death.
Abruptly.
And I wasn't a fan of that cut.
Not at all.
Because I thought that we get this neat shot of her throat and you see the glass kind of embedded in it.
Yeah.
I thought we were leading to a decapitation.
That I thought the same thing, and then when he or the killer, whoever, kept bringing it up and down, I was like, oh, that's so much worse.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing I do want to say is I did read anytime you see those hands, the like witchy creature hands, it's Dario Argento, which is funny.
Yeah.
But again, I was in such quick succession.
Yeah.
Sarah's dead. Rose is dead.
Yeah.
So these two people that I thought we would be following for, especially the fact that Rose didn't die that first night.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I thought that she was going to mail the letter and then that was going to be the end of Rose.
Right.
This letter is what gets Mark to New York and that's it.
Yeah.
But it went a completely different way that I did not anticipate.
Mm-hmm.
But I did read a quote from Argento in that book from Curti, which did kind of make me laugh because he made it almost seem like he invented something. But he said, and I quote, "Over the course of the narration, the characters take a direction, and then suddenly the viewers realize that whoever they thought was the protagonist is actually a marginal figure, and the story changes under their very eyes." I was like,
oh my God.
You mean like Psycho?
Yeah.
I was going to say he invented a false protagonist.
It's crazy, man. Good for him. But sometime later, in the light of day, Mark arrives in New York City. He gazes up at Rose's apartment building, which looms large and ominous above him. He notices a placard out front, which reads, "G. Gurdjieff resided here in the year 1924.
Was he that guy that was responsible for the elevator last week?
I don't think so, dude. What do you say we all go?
Yeah.
Don't try to rally the troops, dude. Come on. Dork.
Let's talk about devil some more.
No, we don't. We've talked enough.
Yeah, that's enough of that.
G. Gurdjieff was actually, according to a really quick internet search, he was a mystic, a philosopher, and an alchemist.
Okay.
And just something that is interesting is it has his lifespan, the years of his life,
Right.
written on this plaque as well. And I think it says he died in 1949, and 49 is a really important number in this film for some reason.
Oh, yeah. The building numbers.
Yeah.
And 13.
Also true. Unlucky.
Yeah.
Right. So they say.
Oh, yes. But Mark glances over at Kazanian Antiques, which was mentioned in his sister's letter, before looking over his shoulder as the morning breeze whistles around him. He then enters the front door of the building, letting himself into the lobby, and he peers past dark wooden frames and ornate wallpaper to find Carol, a caretaker played by Alida Valli, standing in what appears to be a kitchenette.
Alida Valli from Suspiria.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because she was Miss Tanner in Suspiria, and it's kind of a similar situation going on here.
Yeah.
I read that a lot of people thought that she was somehow playing the same character, even though we know what.
Right.
Yeah. I can see it's the same vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she chats with an uncredited man with a large slab of meat resting on a piece of butcher paper in front of them.
Is that roast beef?
No shit, dude. That's all I was thinking. And especially because of the reaction that's coming up.
Right.
Yeah.
But she instructs the man that this goes to the usual place, But when Mark calls out to her, she quickly covers the meat with the sides of the paper and offers a very soft and polite yes.
Like a textbook suspicious.
Yeah.
Yes. As guilty as can be. Mark introduces himself as Rose's brother, and the caretaker responds with a smile, reaching for a key in a slanted post box that rests on the wall. It was tilted sideways completely, which I thought was kind of cool because I didn't know if it was kind of trying to say that things are a bit askew.
Oh, okay.
But a nurse, played by Veronica Lazar, stands by the elevator, clutching the handles of a wheelchair occupied by Professor Arnold, played by Fyodor Sayapin Jr. Carol clutches the key in her hand, directing Mark to his sister's apartment, number 45 on the 4th floor, offering the keys to him if he'd like to go up. He follows her over to the elevator, introducing him to the nurse and Professor Arnold as Rose's brother, who just arrived to New York from Rome. She has no way of knowing that.
Yeah. No.
And Mark's like, yep. I sure
I forgot I told you that.
Yeah. It's like buongiorno.
Yeah.
And since we're already paused, not to be all the number 23 on everybody, but number 45, 4 plus 5 is 9 on the 4th floor, plus 4 is, again, 13.
Okay.
Or again, just 49 if that's, what we're doing here. But,
Interesting. But the nurse gushes with excitement to hear that he has come all the way from Rome. But Professor Arnold sits despondent with no reaction at all. When the elevator doors open, the nurse guides Arnold onto it backwards, joined shortly by Mark, who thanks Carol for her help. As the doors close, the nurse smiles again at Mark, who stands across from her in the yellow-walled elevator. But Professor Arnold, however, scowls up at Mark from his chair, which Mark takes notice of. The nurse claims that Professor Arnold wants to speak with him, and that he does this whenever he has something that he'd like to say.
Yeah, he glares at you like he hates you.
Yeah.
But she introduces the professor to Mark, noting that he's been ill for quite some time. He reaches his hand up to Mark, pawing at a small leather case that Mark holds clutched in his arm. The nurse then asks Mark what he does for a living, and when she misunderstands the field of musicology as toxicology, Mark is forced to explain that musicology has nothing to do with medicine and is rather the study of music. The nurse acknowledges that his sister Rose is involved in some pretty strange work too. But Mark disagrees, considering that Rose is a poet and there's nothing strange about that at all, or musicology for that matter. The nurse just laughs it off, calling poetry a pastime especially suited for women, before bidding Mark goodbye and wheeling Professor Arnold off for his floor.
At least the elevator didn't stop and then, they're, trapped in there. And maybe one of them's the devil.
Oh my God. Was I just attacked? What happened? What is this lady?
I laughed out loud because she was like, oh, toxicology. We know a few doctors. And he's like, no, not at all. And she's like, well, then what is musicology?
Yeah.
Well, it's not even close to what he's
She's like, what the hell are you talking about? And then, what she said about Rose as well, it just feels strange. And again, this thing that she had said, it was similar to what Kazanian had said, this weird thing about, oh, well, women are this. And so it's just very strange. But all alone in the elevator now, Mark sighs and shakes his head, adjusting his grip on the case that Professor Arnold was reaching for. But when he reaches the 4th floor, Mark makes his way down the hall, the camera arcing around the corner as he stands in front of apartment 45. With the key that Carol gave him, Mark lets himself inside, but when he grips the knob to close the door, he discovers that it's broken in half. We pan across the living room of Rose's apartment, focusing in on her desk at the far side of the room, the telephone receiver still resting on the floor from the night before. We don't know yet who killed Rose.
Yeah.
But this is some sloppy-ass work.
Oh, yeah.
You don't replace the doorknob. You don't hang up the phone.
Yeah.
A struggle happened here, although it does take Mark a long time.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're like, this guy's a fucking idiot.
And he's like,
we don't need to hide anything.
Yeah.
Rose was really wild last night, I guess.
I can't believe she keeps house like this.
But Mark sets his bag and leather case down, picking up the phone from the ground and testing the switch hook, only to receive no sound through the speaker. But when he hangs up the phone, he notices something scratched into his leather case, harsh capital letters carved white into the black leather. Mater. We then cut to the kitchen downstairs, where a pair of black gloves clutch a cleaver, roughly chopping the cut of meat that Carol was in possession of earlier. And in the cold evening, we travel up a colorfully lit staircase in a POV shot, reaching a door to the attic, where a pair of black-gloved hands push open a pet door at the bottom, setting down a large bowl of the chopped meat. In a tight shot, a black cat lives its best life, gratefully chowing down on the contents of the bowl.
Oh, see, that wasn't scary. We were just getting cat food.
I mean, it was still roast beef or pot roast or whatever we want to call it. But I was relieved that it was, not that it was being eaten at all, but that it was being eaten by an animal and not them.
Yeah.
Because I thought that that's what was happening.
Like they were going to make burger patties or something?
Yeah, something. Well, the way that we covered it up, we were like standing in front of it, it was suspicious.
Yeah.
And it is interesting, she said, take it to the usual place.
Yeah.
And so whoever is in cahoots with these cats.
Yeah. Well, that's why they're hanging out there so much.
Yeah, honestly. Like, we get to eat people sometimes. And I do want to say, it appears in this moment, it appears very clear that Professor Arnold is trying to help Mark.
Right.
By giving away some kind of a secret indiscreetly.
Yeah.
Or discreetly. Indiscreetly would have been, he's like,
oh, no,
Mater!
Yeah, right.
So, discreetly. God damn it. But at the antique shop, Mr. Kazanian leans on his crutches as he arranges items in the storefront window. His job complete, he smokes a cigarette in the dark of his shop, but his attention is drawn to a window just above his head, where through the blue light of evening, he spies two cats creeping into the alley, and he flashes a knowing look. Mark, however, stands at his sister's desk in her apartment, unpacking the bag that he brought with him.
Thought you were going to say, Mark, however, has never had a knowing look.
Did he take all those books out of that little folder?
He packs tightly, I think.
Yeah, I was like, where did all this shit come from?
I don't know. But as he does this, the drawing of the apartment building hung over the fireplace catches his eye for a moment. But before he can make any kind of assessment, he's distracted when he hears a voice repeatedly calling his sister's name through the wall. He glances around, attempting to locate the source of the voice, as it seems to be coming from all around him. But when it calls out again, he discovers that it's coming from behind the door with the broken knob. When he opens the door, he startles Elise de Longueville Adler, played by Daria Nicolodi, who had already turned to walk away.
I was wondering when we were going to see her.
Yeah.
And it's so great to see her. And we have seen her plenty of times before.
In Tenebrae.
Indeed.
Yes.
But she's in quite a few Argento films. She was actually in Mario Bava's, I think it was 1977 film, Shock.
Okay.
And she actually took partial credit for getting Mario Bava involved in this.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Something she also said in an interview, the name of her character, Elise de Longueville Adler, what she had said in this interview is that nobody gets this name right anywhere. And I noticed this because when I was watching the film, when she introduces herself later, they put her maiden name as Stallone in the subtitles.
Yeah.
And she said, no, it's supposed to be she's of French nobility and she moved to New York and married a Jewish man. And that's like her backstory,
Right.
which fits into her name. And she's like, everybody keeps fucking it up, and I don't know why.
Right, that's so weird.
It's very weird.
It's like, so you married Sylvester Stallone?
Yeah.
It's like, no. Stallone. It doesn't even sound the same.
No.
Hilariously, after hearing a voice just outside of his sister's apartment, opening the door and discovering Elise outside, he asks, was that you? But Elise explains that when she saw the lights on, she thought Rose might have returned. And when she shares that she's a friend of Rose's who lives upstairs, Mark tells her that Rose isn't back yet, but he introduces himself as her brother. He wonders how she was calling out to him, as it seemed like her voice was coming from every direction, and this is when Elise lets Mark in on a little secret, directing his attention to a small hole in the wall in the hallway. We zoom in on it, as Elise explains that there's one just like it going into her apartment, too. She says that it connects to open pipes in all the rooms, and when you speak into it, your voice becomes amplified. She adds that this weird old building is full of secrets like that.
No. I played L.A. Noire. You got those shifty eyes. You're lying. Yeah.
But in a tight shot, we see that Elise is barefoot as she taps her red polish-painted toes on the carpet. When Mark invites Elise inside of Rose's apartment, she looks over her shoulder nervously before taking Mark in with her eyes, breathily accepting his invitation, but stating that she'll only stay for a moment. As they walk into Rose's place, the camera lingers on where Elise was standing in the hall, pressing in to discover dried blood stains that were left in the carpet from Rose's attempted escape. But once inside the apartment, Mark goes to close the door behind them, but Elise asks him not to, as someone is coming to get her soon. I gotta say, I feel like at least 3 lines of Elise's have been foreshadowing. The building is full of secrets like that. Someone's coming to get me soon.
Yeah.
It's like, goddamn.
Yeah.
But standing with Mark in the foyer, Elise properly introduces herself to him, sharing that she's been living alone in this building for 5 years, as her husband's job keeps him traveling constantly. She adds that she can't travel with him because she's not well. We then suddenly find ourselves beneath a skylight in some hidden section of the building, as a red drape is pulled open for the moon to shine through. An organ hums eerily in the score as we see 2 cats from the alley resting comfortably atop a black pillow. They're lit by the golden glow of a candelabra, a full-length mirror with a hand-carved frame perched just behind them. When the cats scatter with a fearful meow, we're then taken back to Rose's apartment, where Mark explains to Elise that what's strange is that Rose knew he was coming, and he assumed that she'd be here waiting for him, and he doesn't understand where she could be.
I'm grateful that he is saying that it's strange, because he's acting like everything is like...
Yeah.
Just unpacking.
Yeah.
No big deal.
It's almost like he just came here to come here.
Yeah.
Now he's not looking for
Yeah.
his sister. He's done anything.
He's on vacation.
Yeah.
I do want to say that cutaway to those cats,
Mm-hmm.
that is, again, a little tease of what's to come, because that mirror is very important later.
Yeah.
And I again, the placement of it was a little odd,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that maybe it should have been placed when Elise said there were a lot of secrets in the building.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Elise just shakes her head, looking away from Mark, as he asks what kind of people live in a building like this anyway. Or maybe it could have gone there.
True.
Okay.
What they did was wrong. That's all I'm trying to say.
I don't like how it stands currently.
But Mark recalls Rose's letter, wondering if there's anyone special who might live here, admitting that he doesn't know how to explain what he's searching for. Elise can only offer her knowledge that the building used to be owned by a rich old eccentric, but that the building was closed down after he died. It was only reopened when an investment company eventually took over. Mark mulls this over before asking who Kazanian is, learning that he's a bookseller and antiques dealer who owns the shop next door that Rose buys a lot of rare books from. Elise continues that Kazanian also, but a low rumble is heard just outside of the open door, and it interrupts her.
Please finish what you were saying.
Yeah.
She's like, I yield the floor
No.
to
the rumble.
low rumble. But when she turns to face the hall, John, a butler played by Leopoldo Mastaloni, slinks into view, alerting Elise that she's wanted on the telephone. I did read that he was Leopoldo Mastaloni, was an actor friend of Daria Nicolodi's, and she got him this part.
Aw.
Okay.
But Elise bids Mark farewell, letting him know that she'll see him tomorrow before leaving with John and closing the door behind her. But in the elevator, as the doors slide closed, John approaches Elise rather closely as she wipes something from the bottom of her foot. He inquires if the madam cut herself, but Elise insists that it's only paint, not blood, as she hurriedly wipes the stain away from her fingers. But in the private quarters of the antique shop, Kazanian rests in bed, reading a magazine beneath a wall of vintage portraits. But his serene evening is disturbed when the sound of movement is heard from somewhere deep within the darkness of his shop. Through the array of antiques, unbeknownst to him, a shadow creeps across the shop's floor and over to a bookshelf, where a black-gloved hand absconds with 3 copies of Emilio Varelli's The Three Mothers.
How?
I don't know, but it kind of ruins everything that I thought was going on with this book.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
I thought they were supposed to be hard to get.
Rare.
Very rare.
Yeah.
He's restocking.
Yeah. Where'd you get these?
Yeah.
Amazon. Barnes and Noble.
Because, dude, even Sarah in Rome, the second she got her hand on a copy, everyone's like, where'd you get this fucking book?
Yeah.
That bookbinder.
Yeah.
Kazanian's like, I'll take 3.
Yeah.
They're selling like hotcakes
Yeah.
from that cake factory. But Kazanian snags his crutches, which are leaned against the wall next to him, and he pushes the door to his quarters open, peering through the crack and into his shop before reaching his feet to investigate. Eerie arpeggiated synth accompanies his every step as he walks on his crutches through the shop, calling out but not receiving any answer. He spies the vacancy on his bookshelf, the 3 missing copies piquing his interest and inspiring him to call out again to no reply. He continues onward until a slight noise startles him into dropping one of his crutches. He reaches his hand to steady himself, but seizes the belly of a black cat who rests on the small table in front of him. The cat hisses, scratching the back of his hand before knocking over a statuette and shattering it on the floor as he escapes out an open window.
Let's not blame the cat. We're all on edge right now.
Yeah.
But the statue really was an extra fuck you on the way out.
Yeah.
I will say, though, anybody who knows cats, it's really a 50-50 on the belly.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, no, that's bold.
Yeah. And all you got was a scratch on the hand? You're okay.
yeah, calm down. But Kazanian stumbles back into a bookshelf, and eyeing the broken antique on his floor, he mutters in anger, "Damn cats." I will say there's that panning shot of this antique shop.
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me of a few of the shots of the antique shop in Mario Bava's Blood and Black Lace.
Okay.
Okay.
Again, I feel like we're really doing a lot here,
Yeah.
but I appreciate it. But we cut to Elise, laying on her bed in her apartment with a blanket around her and a book in front of her, as John places orange caps onto freshly used syringes. Elise asks what the dosage of the medication was, and John answers that the first was 200 milligrams, and the second was 400, which is the maximum dosage she can take. As he collects the syringes on a small metal serving dish, he asks Elise if he should prepare her a bath, and Elise expresses her gratitude for this. And we watch overhead as John runs Elise a bath, sprinkling salts into the water and testing the temperature with a long wooden thermometer.
I was like, damn, he's set. Take the
Yeah.
bath.
That was really cool. I'm not going to lie.
I was like, I don't know what this is,
Yeah.
but I love it.
Yeah, well, he put it in a couple times, and I was like, is he testing the fucking water temperature?
Yeah.
As Elise waits in her bed, she returns to the bottom of her foot, scraping off more of whatever she stepped in the hall. But when she snags a handkerchief and wipes at the substance, she finally gets a proper look at it as it stains the white cloth a faded red. Realization finds her as she whispers, "Blood." And in her mind's eye, we see the stain on the carpet once more, pressing in closer and closer, until John re-enters the room, snapping Elise out of the memory when he alerts her that her bath is ready. A pet bird chirps in its large golden cage by the door as Elise bids John good night, which he returns, adding that he hopes she'll rest well before turning to walk away, suspiciously glancing at Elise once more before he exits.
I know you said you hope that, but your face doesn't look like
Yeah.
No. Once he leaves, Elise rises from her bed and over to the door, sweetly shushing her pet bird before sneaking out of her apartment and down to Rose's apartment to speak with Mark.
Was anybody else scared for the bird?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. It's Pod Mortem.
Yeah.
Bad things happen to birds. The two sit across from each other in the dark of Rose's living room, Elise certain that she stepped in blood in the hall, asking Mark if he noticed that the door handle was broken, which he obviously did but thought nothing of.
What?
I don't know. Elise levels with Mark, revealing that she used to wonder about Rose's ravings, her nervousness, her fear of death, and the myth of the three mothers.
So she's been dealing with this for a while.
Yes.
I don't think that I necessarily that it conveyed that when we meet her at the beginning.
I think the only thing that I can think is in the time it took for the letter to get to Mark.
Okay.
Rose and Elise talked more about it.
Okay.
And then the time it took for Mark to check his mail. And
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
and then not read the letter.
Right.
Okay, that makes more sense.
As ominous organ keys oscillate in the score, Elise elaborates on Rose's obsession with three Latin names: Mater Suspiriorum, the mother of sighs; Mater Lacrimarum, the mother of tears; and Mater Tenebrarum, the mother of darkness. Bathed in blue light, Elise explains that Rose read about them in an old book, and she talks as if it were a true story. The camera presses tightly on Elise's lips before rising and falling like waves over a small grate above the fireplace. She adds that Rose thinks that this building is in some way connected to the three mothers, as well as some Italian architect, misremembering his name as Morelli before correcting herself to Varelli, but admitting that she doesn't know the connection beyond that. But as we press into the grate and find ourselves inside of a small opening in the wall, Elise shudders that she herself has become nervous and fearful lately, as if she's being watched constantly. And as her voice echoes through a collection of pipes in the wall, Elise adds that sometimes she feels a presence, as if someone is in the room with her. She fears that her doctor might be right, that she is a nervous wreck. But suddenly, a malicious laugh emanates from the grate, its hatched pattern disappearing as we focus and refocus on Elise's fearful face as she shoots right up out of her seat. She pleads to know if Mark heard the laugh as well, but Mark, who now stands inspecting the red carpet in the outside hall, didn't hear a thing. He got up
While she was talking.
Yeah.
And you really didn't hear that laugh that sounded like the devil himself?
Dude, yes. It was loud as hell.
Mark's like, oh yeah, you're still here.
It's like a sim.
Yeah.
You accidentally hit it and it's like, oh no, I wasn't done with that.
But Mark confirms Elise's suspicion when he discovers that the stains on the carpet are, in fact, blood. But the pair follow the trail of bloodstains on the carpet to a door that leads to a service entrance, which Elise shares that no one ever uses. Mark insists that someone has been through here, and he says that he plans to check it out, asking if Elise wants to join him. But Elise refuses, suggesting that she stay behind because she's scared. Mark understands, opening the door and entering the staircase alone.
I don't think you do, dude.
No,
Not at all.
As Elise stands alone, shivering, Mark walks down the first set of stairs, discovering dried blood marring the dark green paint on the wall. He continues onward, reaching a spiral staircase leading down into a boiler room. Red light pours in through busted windows on the far wall, and when Mark reaches the bottom of the stairs, his attention is drawn to a small grate. He opens it, peering inside and discovering a small light blinking at a distance through the long ventilation shaft. A foul wind blows in his direction through the vent, causing him to buckle, overcome and lightheaded as he plants his back against the wall, disoriented and attempting to catch his breath. This reminded me of what happened to Susie in Suspiria
Okay.
when they danced and she collapsed.
Yeah.
Maybe if there was a sign that says don't open the portal vent, like it's like you don't want to open that.
But Elise, however, stands at the door to the service entrance, clutching the long white curtain that hangs at its side. She slides it over the door, only to discover Rose's bloody handprint that she left there the night before.
Mark never saw that either?
Nah. She wrenches it open again, calling urgently for Mark, but when he doesn't respond, she enters the service entrance, peering down the stair hole.
Yeah.
And calling out to him again, asking where he is. As she inches her way down the steps, Mark has collapsed on the floor of the boiler room, crawling over to one of the large windows on the opposite wall. This looks like a place that like Batman beats the shit out of people. Doesn't it? But just as he does, a cloaked figure, not Batman, but dressed all in black, emerges from the shadows and approaches Mark's body. Elise proceeds barefoot through the blue light of the staircase, reaching the landing of a lower floor. But suddenly, a window bursts open right in front of her, the wind blowing her hair back and rustling her dress. But through this opening, Elise can see through the windows down to the boiler room, where she sees the cloaked figure dragging Mark's unconscious body across the floor. She gasps, and the figure somehow takes notice of her, raising their hands against the glass of the window to spy Elise, the witness to their actions.
That just visual of Mark being dragged away.
Yeah.
He's
This
out.
is really funny. This is like, you're useless.
Yeah. It is funny. But I will say, and it's very quick, but that like shot of the figure with his hands against the window,
Yeah.
it looks really cool because it almost looks like, because of the cloak, that there's two figures there, one with its hands against the window and one behind it.
Yeah.
But it is just that person.
I had to go back because the way that it cuts that way,
Yeah.
it was like, oh, this is way bigger than I thought.
Yeah.
But Elise takes off running back up the stairs. But when she reaches the service entrance, we watch as the locking mechanism clicks in from the other side, barring Elise's path to an exit. The music grows frenzied as she continues upward, the wind howling around her, encountering yet another locked door on the floor above. With no other options, Elise reaches the attic door, which seems quite familiar indeed. That's where those cats were getting fed.
Yeah.
But Elise turns the knob, entering the room. She passes a pair of stacked chairs as she cautiously creeps deeper inside. But she jumps when the door closes on its own behind her. But continuing onward, she thinks herself alone among the dust and cobweb-covered furniture and fixtures that surround her. But suddenly, the slivered green eye of a black cat opens, and a flock of ferocious felines fly through the air, slicing at Elise with their claws and dragging her to the floor. I will say it is exactly as it looks like. I read Lamberto Bava and his assistant were literally just chucking cats at Daria Nickelodeon.
My note is, were they really throwing cats at this woman? Because that's clearly what it looks like.
Well, yes.
How many cats were pissed off in the making of this film?
Well, too many, I would say.
Yeah.
A lot.
It was funny, not like in like ha funny, but I was like, everybody's getting fucked off.
Oh, yeah.
Mark's getting carried away. These cats are in here jumping you. What the fuck? What? What now?
They did, though.
Hey, they have loyalty to whoever.
Yeah.
And one thing I will say, another connection to Suspiria.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever the piano player goes into that courtyard,
Mm-hmm.
his dog turns against him.
Yeah.
That's right.
You have as well that very frightening and strange sequence when Susie's in her bathroom and that bat attacks her.
Yeah.
So the witches, they have control of animals.
Yeah.
Clearly.
But as Elise screams, writhing defenseless against their attack, she's swarmed in frenetic shots of their paws, snarls, and sharp teeth. The door to the attic opens, and the cloaked figure enters through the dark, and as the music swells to a crescendo, their black-gloved hand brings down a long, sharp knife into Elise, silencing her screams forever. But we return to Mark, who stumbles into the lobby of the apartment, clutching his chest as he collapses to the floor dramatically. Drenched in sweat, he's approached by Carol and the nurse, begging them both for help and telling them that it's his heart. As they peer down at him, Carol repeats, "He says it's his heart." The nurse suggests some heart medicine, offering him a drink of water as Carol raises his head to accept it. His whistle properly wetted, Mark croaks for information regarding the whereabouts of his sister. A pair of uncredited tenants join Carol and the nurse as Carol suggests that they take him back up to the apartment. And as Mark's vision grows hazy, he gazes up at the gathered group, pleading once more to know where Rose is. But his view of them gives way to crashing ocean waves before he's promptly startled awake the next morning, finding himself on Rose's leather couch in her living room, Elise's name on his lips as he lurches upright. So there is clearly something nefarious and sinister about all of what has just happened.
Yes.
And Carol and the nurse, seemingly, once again, we would say, are probably in cahoots.
Oh, yeah.
One would think.
Definitely.
It's just the way they're acting.
It's just their entire behavior.
Just all of it.
And I don't know what to make of the ocean waves.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I don't know. I was trying to connect it back to Rose swimming through the lower floor, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Or that it's all going to come crashing down.
And it is.
And it is.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
But Mark wipes the sleep from his eyes, running his fingers through his hair as he reaches his feet, stumbling his way over to a window and gazing out into the New York morning, cars speeding by on a nearby freeway. So something that they had mentioned in the book by, I think it was Maitland McDonough,
Mm-hmm.
she had said that Argento had them film through the window of the hotel that he was staying in when he wrote Inferno.
Oh.
Because if you recall, if we're really following what the geography of the building is, it should be that parking lot where the mailbox was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of messing with your head a little bit.
Right.
Very much so.
But he rests his hand on the window frame, only to realize that it's crawling with ants. He tears his hand away, swiping the eager insects from his palm.
I don't know who's running this building, but I would call the super or landlord or slumlord or whoever.
This is unacceptable.
Yeah, this can be a problem.
But Mark seems to be like, all right.
Yeah.
Because he just leaves the apartment.
He does.
But he finds himself in front of Elise's apartment door on the floor above, and he rings the buzzer to no response.
When she did not answer this door,
Mm-hmm.
I would flee from the building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your sister is obviously not here. The only other person who is admitting that there is something strange going on, we were talking last night, she's gone.
Yeah.
I had a heart episode or whatever the fuck you want to call it. You were attacked.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
No, I'm leaving. I'm leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, this is the only time that I'm like, hey, at least he's fucking paying attention.
What, him
Right.
going to see her at all?
Or what happens right here.
Okay.
Because after the unsuccessful attempts of the buzzer, Mark whispers through a hole in the wall that Elise told him about.
Good job, Mark.
Yeah.
So one. But as we pan through Elise's apartment, the camera settles on John, the butler, who stands there silent and motionless, patiently awaiting Mark's exit from the front door. But downstairs, Kazanian stands in the lobby, going off to Carol about all the cats in the alley, calling them disgusting, astounded by their numbers, and incensed that one got into his shop last night, scratched him, and broke one of his expensive statues.
No, it did.
Yeah. All true. He warns Carol that this is the very last time, and if it happens again, he'll go to the police or the Board of Health to complain. As he walks away on his crutches, he fumes that he wants all of those damn cats away from here. Carol just smirks, urging him to do as he pleases. But the smile stretches across her face when she sees Mark making his way off the elevator, pleased to see him feeling better. Mark admits that he doesn't even remember what happened last night, and Carol reminds him that he fell ill, complaining of a pain in his heart. Mark assures her that he doesn't have any heart problems, but Carol shares that they gave him medicine for his heart anyway. Mark doesn't ask any follow-up questions.
No, what the fuck?
And I'm sorry as well, dude. For anyone that has ever had heart problems in their entire life, there was a day before you had them and the day that it became apparent that you have them.
Right.
He's like, oh, no, not me.
Yeah. My heart's perfect and always will be. It's like, Mark.
Even if you want to just like, oh no, not me. But what did I take then?
That,
what did you
give me?
That's more concerning.
Yeah.
And it was even weird when the nurse said, we'll give you some heart medicine.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you're not going to give me. You're clearly not giving me heart medicine. But again, instead of any follow-up questions, Mark instead takes notice of Xxena exiting the apartment building. And when he learns from Carol who he is, he rushes off to talk to him, thanking Carol for her help on the way out. I do want to make mention of what the fuck Carol says when Xxena's leaving.
Yeah.
Mark says, "Who's that?" She goes, "That gimp?"
Yes.
I was like, what the fuck?
That was my note. I was very surprised.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, if you say something that rude, you're like, you clearly have it out for Xxena.
Yeah.
Right.
Which means clearly, and again, Mark is so unaware of everything.
Yeah.
But to me, I'm like, okay, so then it's going to be me and Xxena solving something.
Yeah.
He's going to be my ally because for some reason you don't like him.
Right.
And you're insulting him right in front of me.
Well, not only that, he owns the bookstore next door, so
Yeah.
he knows
He's got
something.
knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mark doesn't, I mean, he takes like 25% of these clues. But Mark thanks her for helping him last night, and she creepily responds, "A pleasure."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, dude. Mark's
We're
like, what a
not-
sweet lady.
We're not coming back here.
No.
But out in front of the apartment building, Mark catches up with Xxena in the sunlight, introducing himself as Rose's brother. Xxena remembers Rose buying some books from him, but he claims that he doesn't know her very well. When Mark reveals that no one has seen her for the last 2 days, Xxena interrupts him, repeating that he's only sold Rose some books, and that if Mark can't find her, he should do what people usually do, like call hospitals or the police. Mark shares that he's already done this, and they don't know anything about Rose's whereabouts.
Yeah. I was like, did you?
No,
Yeah.
I never saw. He's like, that's a great idea.
Oh, fuck. This is embarrassing.
But as they cross the alley and reach Xxenian's storefront, Mark inquires if a clue from Rose's letter means anything to him. The third key is under the soles of your shoes. Xxenian grunts that he's no good at riddles, but as he reaches for the store key in his jacket pocket, he stands upright, asking Mark how long he's been here. And upon learning that he only got in yesterday, he informs Mark that there will be an eclipse of the moon tonight, adding that it's been 46 years since they've had a total eclipse around here. He suggests for Mark to watch it, as he says that it might be interesting. And Mark agrees that he will, as Xxenian tells him that he'll like it a lot. This again feels very suspicious.
It feels like a threat.
Yeah. He should be. What does that have to do with my sister?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know more than what you're saying.
It honestly seems like he's dropping another clue.
Yeah.
But Mark is not going to pick it up.
Not
No.
at all.
He asked you, what does it mean when something's under the soles of my shoes? But Xxenian proceeds to unlock the fuck out of the front door. He really goes after it. But he lets himself inside, standing in the way when Mark seems to step forward to follow him. He merely offers, "Goodbye, Mr. Elliot," which Mark returns before the door closes in his face. But as soon as Xxenian enters the shop, he glares as he watches 3 alley cats scatter toward the exit.
They said, we heard that you were talking shit and you didn't think that we would hear it.
But that night, in the basement of his shop, Xxenian locates a cat resting under his workbench. He reaches for it cautiously before seizing it by its scruff and carrying it across the basement against its furious protestations. He struggles with the cat, and I can't even believe this shit. Bashes its head against the side of a chair.
Yeah,
I was speechless. And like, you can die right now.
Yeah.
Like we're done. This guy's not helping us. It's not us against them. It's not.
No.
I'm just waiting for your downfall now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think I literally yelled at the TV. I was like, yo, I was like, you can't. What the fuck?
I've never seen shit like this in my life.
No,
No.
it was very, very shocking.
Yeah.
I will say, if I'm not mistaken, I read in Corty's book that in a few of the theatrical releases of this film, a lot of this sequence was trimmed down a lot.
I can
Okay,
see
yeah.
why.
Well, it's not like the cat had too much to drink and he's trying to get him out of the bar.
No.
Well, that's how he's handling
yeah.
him.
But Kazanian then opens a large chest, revealing a sizable burlap sack within it. He unties the sack, and we see several captured stray cats inside, mewling upward at the shop owner as he tosses the final cat in. He then ties the bag tightly with rope. We cut to a bridge somewhere in New York City later that evening. As Kazanian makes his way over it, the city lights surrounding him and emergency sirens echoing in the distance. He finally finds himself in Central Park, and he approaches a lake, water trickling into it from drain pipes. The muffled mewling of the cats is heard through the burlap sack clutched in Kazanian's hand as he checks to see if the coast is clear, and the only company he sees are a group of red-eyed rats taking a drink at the water's edge.
I cannot believe that this man trekked all the way out here for this.
Yeah.
No.
I was devastated.
I honestly thought, even with the fucking shitty action that he did in the basement,
Yeah.
I thought that he was just going to release them into the alley.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
But he presses on, deeper into the shallow lake. But off in the distance, we see a cook played by James Fleetwood operating a brightly lit food truck. But Kazanian pays him no mind as he forces the sack into the water, submerging it with the help of his crutch. I did read in Tim Lucas's book.
Mm-hmm.
He interviewed William Lustig, who I think helped find locations for Argento on this film, and would go on to direct the original Maniac.
Okay.
Oh.
And he said that some of the exterior shots that they did for Inferno actually ended up in Maniac as well.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But he had said that in this burlap sack, they had rigged like a mechanical device to make it appear as if there were cats inside moving around.
Thank
Yeah.
God.
So-
I was hoping it was something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's the 70s and 80s, and you
never know.
Yeah. I always heard, and I know again, when there's like villains, it's like he puts cats in bed.
And
It's like,
yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah.
And seeing it here, that I'll be honest, it was a lot. And then
It
him
was.
putting the cats in the water and using his crutch, I was like, dude,
Yeah.
It's
do I
too
really gotta watch
much.
this shit?
And I was
No.
watching it with Luna, so it was even sadder.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And again, as we said, like once this happens, it's like, dude, I don't give a fuck what happens to this
Yeah, no.
Yeah, no, we're hoping it's bad and it happens very soon.
dude. Mm-hmm. But suddenly, Kazanian takes a tumble, losing not only his footing, but one of his crutches in the lake.
Good.
Yeah.
He struggles to keep his head above water, screaming for help as a lunar eclipse takes shape just above him. We see the Earth's shadow covering the moonlight and dipping New York into darkness. I see faces around the table and I agree with them completely. Because, no,
No.
this is not how eclipses work,
No.
lunar
Of
eclipses.
course not.
But it's a very cool visual, so we'll pretend
It's
that
fine.
it's okay. But Kazanian screams for help, attempting to dislodge his legs from the mud beneath them. A rat at the water's edge squeaks at him and runs off, possibly to go get the help he requested.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, where's Ratma when you need him?
But Kazanian's hand slams down onto a cardboard box floating in the lake. A cardboard box filled with more rats. I don't know if somebody had the same idea Kazanian did, but just with rats.
Yeah.
There's no telling.
I don't know.
Or they're just waiting.
Maybe. I felt like House of the Dead. I was like, what's wrong with this city? But the rats burst from their package prison, swimming to Kazanian and proceeding to chew the flesh of his legs, his arms, his neck, and any part of him that they can sink their teeth into.
They said, not on our watch.
Yeah, they beef with cats, but they knew that was too far.
Yeah.
They were like, no. We're
not doing
enemies,
that.
but that was too much.
I hoped that the souls of the cats had entered these rats. That's what was happening here.
The only thing more satisfying would be if the cat still hopped out of that bag.
Yes.
If we got a shot of that.
I wanted to see almost like Baxter at the end of Anchorman. You're
Yes.
like, oh, he's fine.
Oh, thank
Oh,
God.
he survives. But other rats congregate in a nearby storm drain, watching as their brethren fuck Kazanian up for, honestly, several minutes at least.
Yeah.
But after a while, Kazanian screams
Oh my God.
hilariously, "The rats are eating me!" I had to pause. I was cackling.
I had to pause as well. We know.
Yeah.
I did read for portions of this that they switched out the actor for the trainer
Okay.
because the rats were actually biting the actor.
Oh, shit.
And so the animal trainer was there to kind of make sure that everything ran
Holy
smoothly.
shit.
Yeah.
And I guess he took a couple of the bites for him.
That's insane.
Yeah.
But the music grows frenzied as the cook from the food truck stands across the lake and finally takes notice of Kazanian. He tears off his hat and rushes over as fast as he can with a knife in his hand. He splashes through the water, Kazanian screaming that the rats are eating him alive. And when the vendor finally reaches Kazanian, he buries the knife in the back of Kazanian's neck again and again before tossing the knife into the water and kicking the old man's corpse over to the storm drain.
Yeah, I saw that too, bitch. I was
Yeah.
over there. I seen what you did.
Absolutely.
Like, I have cats at home.
Yeah.
They were eating you alive and now they're just eating you. When he was running over, I was like, do not help him.
Right.
But yeah, I was very pleased with this. But this whole segment to me almost felt like it was from a different movie.
Yeah.
It
I was like,
does.
what the hell
yeah.
is going on?
And this is what I was saying earlier about like nightmarish vignettes.
Right.
Yeah.
This seems like again, like Tales from the Dark Side segment, as you
Right.
said.
Yeah.
Almost like that cat
Yes.
that ate that mobster or whatever
Yeah.
it was. But piano plays frantically in the score, and strings swell around it as Kazanian is picked apart by dozens of rats that pour out of the nearby pipe. I did want to point out, I read that the knife that stabs into him was actually Lamberto Bava.
Oh, that's cool.
But this was, as you said, a wild fucking sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did read in a segment from that Tim Lucas book that they imported 1,500 giant rats from Asia because the ones they had at their disposal, Argento said that they were too small.
Okay.
They wanted them to be bigger and scarier. He said that Argento and Bava were holding them by their tails and dropping them on Pituev,
Uh-huh.
and that some of the rats escaped and mated with local rats, and that it took years to exterminate the result of this.
Jesus
Wow.
Christ.
Which is like, I don't know if you should be telling anybody.
No. I mean, we should know, but
Yeah, but we probably should have kept a better hold on these giant rats.
I mean, is anybody else thinking of Bart with the frog in Australia?
Absolutely.
But we cut back to the apartment building, where John stands next to a dining room table, counting a stack of cash in his hands before placing it neatly inside of a small chest that sits in front of him. It's filled with garish diamond and gold jewelry. He calls Carol over to look inside, and she steps toward the box in amazement. John curses Elise, calling her the B word, and mocking her for hiding the box where she thought no one could find it, bragging that he only searched for 15 minutes.
What the hell?
Yeah, I don't know.
What is this?
He then leans into Carol's face, chortling, but Carol admonishes John for the alcohol that she claims to smell all over him, and when confronted, he repeatedly denies that he's been drinking. I don't know enough about either of you.
Yeah.
To be invested.
But maintaining eye contact with John, Carol closes the lid of the jewelry box, walking across the room to place it inside of a larger case that rests on a side table. She instructs John to go upstairs and call Elise's husband, ensuring that John knows where to find him at this hour, and telling him to say that Elise left all of a sudden and took all of her valuables with her.
Make sure you are clear
Yeah.
that we don't have her valuables.
John asks, what if the bitch comes back? Which is a wild way to phrase that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But didn't you kill her last night?
Yeah.
I thought that they were a party to this murder.
That's what confused me. That's what I have. We killed her, dude.
Yeah.
And it's strange to me because Carol seems to be very certain that she's not coming back.
Right.
John, who was looking shifty as fuck whenever Mark was outside the apartment, doesn't know that she is never coming back.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. But Carol assures John that Elise won't be back, and when asked how she can be so sure, Carol sternly repeats herself. The Countess is not coming back. She orders John to just worry about calling Elise's husband, but she smiles that now it's their time to enjoy life and to live it up like the Countess Elise and all the other rich bastards. It's like, all right, you're winning me back.
I do like that.
But John does as told, heading upstairs to Elise's apartment and straight for a telephone in the living room. But just as soon as he lifts the receiver and dials the first number, he's distracted by the sound of movement in the other room. He peers past the dining room and into the den, creeping his way over to discover the floorboards torn up at the center of the room and 2 shovels lying abandoned at the digging site. John pauses, confused, before venturing deeper into the apartment, calling out to whoever could have made the noise. He then reaches a pair of blue silk curtains hanging at the far end of the room, but when he reaches for the small gap between them, a ghastly gray hand charges from the other side, seizing his wrist as he struggles and groans. Downstairs, Carol hears a loud crashing sound, and assuming it to be John, she rushes up to Elise's apartment and calls out for him. When the light switch by the front door yields no illumination, she notices a nearby candelabra, striking a match and lighting her way with one of the candles. She steps deeper into the apartment, rounding the corner to discover John's legs protruding from a shattered cabinet in the wall, his shoes resting atop assorted debris. But when she shines her candlelight to get a better look, we see John resting dead inside the cabinet, his mouth agape, his eyes torn from their sockets and hanging from ligaments and a mess of blood at his cheeks.
Well, that was quick.
Yeah.
Would have been neat to see, maybe 1%
Any
of
of
that.
it?
I will say there was part of the curtains, it was like the draw portion of it.
Okay.
It's a rope, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
That fell down from the top, and I did read that it was meant to be implied that he was strangled so hard
Oh.
that his eyes popped out of his head.
Oh,
Damn.
damn.
But Carol shrieks, dropping the candle and backing out of the room. She soon returns when the light of a growing fire flickers shadows across the foyer, discovering that the curtain next to John's body has been set ablaze. She attempts to stomp the life out of the fire, but it climbs the height of the curtain, burning the fabric free from its hanger and dropping on top of Carol, covering her. Wrapped in the warmth of the burning curtain, Carol twists blindly through the room, screaming, before crashing through a nearby window and tumbling several floors downward through a skylight to her death.
Yeah.
It's such overkill.
Yeah.
It's a comedy of errors.
It is. And this is what I'm talking about with the pacing. Because their comeuppance coming this swiftly
Yeah.
after it was just very surprising after this really prolonged buildup. And so now it's like we're at the end. Fuck, okay, let her fall out the fucking window.
Yeah.
Like it's just so it's wild.
I would like to know, because it seemed, at least in that moment in the lobby with Mark, it definitely seemed like Carol was a part of some kind of conspiracy.
Yes.
So I do want to know why she died this way.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing for me. I'm a little confused with it because the butler or John he seemed too like he knew what was going on. He at least had a hand in whatever they were doing. Then when he gets got, I was like, oh, so it's like, hey, you don't get a cut. I'm taking it now. It's like, okay, but then she dies, and I was like, wait, I thought you guys were all in on this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What the fuck's happening?
I feel like we need to find a way to get this fire started everywhere.
No, that's exactly what it is.
Yes. And I will say, I forgot to mention at the top, the film's called Inferno, but in Italian it's Inferno, which is hell,
Right.
which is also kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But Mark stands in Rose's apartment, gazing up at the framed photo of the building's facade before pacing around the living room, lost in thought as he attempts to put all the pieces together. He walks across the hardwood floor, but suddenly stops, knocking the soles of his shoes against the floorboards and being met with a hollow echo beneath the steps. A piano sings in the score as he approaches the framed picture once again, recollecting the line from his sister's letter, "Under the soles of your shoes." The music grows louder as Mark peers deeper into the photo, his eyes panning across the marble carvings of snakes that line the exterior of each floor, and the camera matches his discoveries outside on the beautifully lit building itself. I will say, just a sidebar of something kind of interesting, Varelli designed and built all the houses for the three mothers, he said.
Okay.
Snakes are also prevalent in the production design of the building in Freiburg of the Tens Academy.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting to have this thing where it's like, oh, this is just his design.
He loves it.
Yeah. But Mark snags a pencil, shading a section of the carvings diagonally on the photo before whispering to himself, "The key is under the soles of your shoes."
He's a visual learner.
I don't know what this shading is doing.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's the only thing I could think of. Because my note was, what was the point of that?
I don't know. But we return to the raging fire of Carol's body, crash-landed and smoldering, before finding Mark at the window in Rose's living room, which is still crawling with ants. But he discovers that the ants cover not only the window, but the floorboards beneath it.
I told you.
Yeah, so you got to call somebody,
Yeah.
dude. But Mark notices a small hole in the floor, which the ants have made their entrance into Rose's apartment, and he tears loose a match from a matchbook, squeezing it thinner between his fingers before dropping it into the hole, past the frantic feelers of the encroaching ants. I will say I did read that the opening shot of this film was meant to be ants crawling in and out of that hole.
Oh, that would have been
okay.
cool.
And then they just didn't do it for some reason.
Yeah.
That would have been cool because you don't get it until you get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like stuff like that.
Was he trying to put the match like in between?
To cover it?
I don't know or to set it on fire and then let it. I just don't understand what he was doing.
I didn't know if he was trying to plug the hole, but the ants are already here.
No, yeah,
Like,
Well, I love the idea of him finally piecing this mystery together and then being like, I gotta stop these.
Yeah.
I gotta stop these.
I,
Let me
I
just
can't think with these fucking ants here.
let me just take care of this real quick.
But we suddenly cut to Elise's apartment, the camera gliding through the living room as the fire spreads across the floor, engulfing the overarching staircase above her piano, support beams crumbling from the ceiling above. But on the floor below, Mark snags a can of bug spray, letting loose with it on the ants gathering around the hole in the floor, and with the swarm vanquished, he straightens out a wire hanger, piercing it down into the hole to check the depth of it. But when he exhausts the length of the hanger, he retrieves it, measuring the length. He then procures Rose's dagger-like letter opener from her desk, prying up the floorboards to reveal a hole in the concrete below. Unbeknownst to Mark, as he knocks the weak layer of concrete away with a fire poker, the flames from Elise's apartment have burned through the walls, licking at the metal pipes behind them. But in Rose's apartment, a black and white alley cat spies Mark's work from the ledge of the window outside, diving through the room and into the larger hole that Mark has created in the floor. Mark reaches into the hole beneath the concrete, and through the debris, he seizes a small scroll tied neatly with a red ribbon. He promptly unrolls it, revealing faded ink on the aged pages that read, Mater tenebrarum, mater lacrimarum, mater suspiriorum, followed by a Latin phrase which translates to, Your fires receive the image of the underworld, the souls of my souls. And a name is signed at the bottom, E. Varelli. So, he's finally.
Yeah.
That's 2.
Yeah. I will say I did notice, and I do appreciate the care of the cats. When the cat jumped in the hole, you do see a hand grab the cat and bring it down. Yes.
I love it.
I did appreciate that.
I love that.
But Mark then lowers himself into the hole he's created, only to discover a sprawling crawl space beneath, and as he dives into it, he peers around an array of support pillars, a driving synth track accompanying him, with operatic vocals chanting the names of the 3 mothers.
Are you fucking kidding me, dude?
Holy shit. This is what we've been waiting for.
I could not believe my ears.
I was very pleased.
It came in hot and fast. That's
It did. But I was like, they have a fucking theme song.
Yeah.
Like, the music was enough for me to be like, oh, hell yeah, dude. And then when the vocals started,
It's like, God damn.
I couldn't believe it.
It's been stuck in my head since then. I will say as well, if we're talking about parallels, Mark lowering himself into that hole is almost exactly Rose doing the same thing.
Oh, that's right.
Well, I was like, this family is bold.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I would have done neither of those things.
No. But that does, when we were talking about alchemy before, we had air, we had water, we have the fire now in the apartment building, and the earth that he had to dig through to get down.
Okay.
Yeah. And it is interesting, the recurring theme of like this cleansing fire throughout these, like, I guess, interlocking stories.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fair. But Mark continues onward, clattering through weak wooden planks, his face souring in disgust when he finds the alley cat from outside dining on a half-eaten mouse. That was another thing that I heard was trimmed down in the theatrical version.
Okay. That looks like a real mouse.
Yeah,
Being
I don't
eaten.
know, dude.
So
I'm not sure that it wasn't. I don't know.
yeah.
I hope it was like a jelly belly or something.
I was just like, God damn.
That's rough. But at the end of the crawl space, Mark slides a door open, revealing a full staircase which he enters and descends. On his way down, he slides open another hatch in the wall, revealing another crawl space just like the one he exited. But he leaves it behind, walking down the steps, his hand clutching the red velvet railing. At the bottom of the stairs, Mark finds a door, pushing it open to enter a corridor bathed in red light. Through a window in the wall, he gazes down to the floor below to find the parlor of an apartment, lined with chairs and a collection of plants at its center. But a door opens, carving a light through the blue darkness, and Mark watches as the nurse guides Professor Arnold in his wheelchair through the room, and the synth opera dips to silence in the score.
Aww.
We'll miss you.
It was very funny how hard the music was going and him just wandering around searching. I was like, what the fuck? You better find something worth this music.
The music, yeah.
But when the nurse leaves Professor Arnold all alone and vacates the dwelling, Mark rushes downstairs, watching as Arnold wheels himself down a hallway and into another room at the far end of the apartment. When Mark catches up with him, Arnold sits at a desk of audio equipment, plugging a cable into an amplifier. A mechanical device clipped to his throat, his voice emanates from a loudspeaker as he turns to face Mark. "You found the way down, I see. And now, I suppose, you know who I am." Mark glances around the room as Arnold's voice echoes all around him, but Mark admits that he has no idea who he is.
Yeah.
How the fuck? Dude, oh my God.
Yeah. And who might you be?
Arnold very kindly reveals that when he lived in London many years ago, he called himself Varelli.
Mark's like, who's that?
But now, he says, he uses a different name, to be forgotten. He asks Mark if he's surprised to hear his voice, and clutching the device, he explains that this is the only way that he can speak. He confesses that he built the houses for the three mothers, houses which became their eyes and ears, and then he buried himself here. He declares that the building has become his body, its brick, his cells, its passageways, his veins, and its horror, his very heart.
That's good.
Yeah.
See, I like this. I really, really love this little part right there, him saying that. Can I get some of that?
I think the thing is it is exactly that. The line works perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
I do not understand where this interaction goes from here.
Yeah.
Because it seemed like Mark had an ally in Kazanian.
Yeah.
And it seems in this moment, it's me and Varelli against whatever's going on here.
Yep.
Right.
But Mark demands to know where Rose is, and clutching the device, Varelli beckons Mark to come closer so that no one else will hear him, pronouncing her as the cruelest of them all, the mother of shadows. He bids Mark closer once more, remarking that Mark shouldn't be afraid of a man who can hardly move. Mark inches his way over to Varelli, leaning closer to him as Varelli reaches his left arm to guide Mark in. But with his right hand, Varelli, armed with a syringe, jams a needle into Mark's shoulder.
Mark, you fucking idiot.
Everything that he was saying, it was like, oh, this is not going to go well. And Mark's like, well, he said he said he would help or whatever.
Rolled up his sleeve,
Yeah.
cleaned it with alcohol white.
Yeah.
What do you need?
Mark tears himself away from Varelli, clattering to the floor, but in his defensive movements, he knocks Varelli's wheelchair over. The alchemist is caught by the device at his throat, the cable hanging taut in the amplifier, wrenching his neck in its grip. Varelli struggles against it, crying out as he's strangled by the wire, his voice echoing from the speakers as he gasps fruitlessly on the floor for air. Mark puts his back to the wall, tearing the shirt from his sleeve, and upon discovering the wound and whatever Varelli injected him with pouring out of it, he forces his mouth onto it, sucking it out.
This is quicker thinking than I thought Mark capable
I
of.
was very
Yeah.
surprised.
I'm not going to lie. You got to give him his flowers for that.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to faint again and wake up somewhere else.
We see him being dragged away.
Yeah. But he spits the solution on the floor, leaving only a small drop of blood leaking from his wound. I will say that was really funny to me because that blood was like, all right, I got it all.
Yeah.
Oh, thank God.
But he watches as Varelli lies dying on the floor, and unbeknownst to both men, the building continues to burn, smoke pouring in from Varelli's fireplace in the other room. But after a moment of hesitation, Mark relieves the choking Varelli, replacing the cable to another plug on the switchboard and giving Varelli the room to breathe again. I will say, whenever he unplugs that cable, Varelli hits his head hard on the floor, and it echoes through the room. It's rough. As he gasps for air, Varelli mutters that he may be dying now, but that nothing will change. They don't want anything to be different. He declares that he's not a master. He is just a slave. Mark pleads to know who it is, as someone watches from a crack in the door at the other side of the room. He demands to know who lives in this damn house, and Varelli croaks in response, someone who is waiting, and he tells Mark that he's being watched. A silhouette then appears in the large window of the door before disappearing as Varelli declares that to them, Mark is nothing but dust. Mark notices the departing silhouette, racing after it through the door, leaving Varelli behind to die. But Mark stumbles through a corridor, a mirror in front of him catching the reflection of the building burning behind him. And as he charges through green light, past bursting light fixtures and a smoldering portrait, he crashes through a pair of red curtains and through the door behind them. Gold light pours into the room that he's entered, the walls lined with carved rock which appear to convey the faces of tortured souls. I did want to point out, I read that Bava sculpted these walls.
Okay.
And again, they were miniatures that he placed in front of a viewfinder. He said that he thought that it looked like they were floating there. And so in order to connect the sculpture with the set, he literally crumpled up brown paper bags and he put them on the floor.
That's fucking insane.
Yeah.
It looks perfect.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
But Mark forges forward through the blue darkness until he reaches another door and barges through it. There, as a woman's vocals howl in the score, he finds an ornate lair of stone and golden fixtures, a woman resting her head on a long table in front of him under the glow of a burning candelabra. And this is the room we saw before.
Yeah.
The camera pans from the woman to an audacious wooden altar, and finally, a massive mirror that rests in the corner of the room. Clutching his arm, Mark approaches the woman just as she slowly raises her head from the table. Facing away from Mark, she intones, "It's on fire. It's all going to burn down, just like before." I think she's talking about the Tanz Academy.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Okay.
I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Mark warns the woman that they have to get out of here. Why do you think she's on your side?
Yeah.
What is giving you any
That's
fucking...
so fucking...
He's like, lady, we gotta go. He's well-intentioned.
Yeah.
But god damn, Mark.
Ooh.
But Mark's pleas are interrupted by the encroaching fire, and the door that he entered slams shut behind him. He struggles with the doorknob as the woman laughs maniacally, finally turning to meet Mark's gaze, and with her hair blowing in an unearthly breeze, the woman is revealed to be Varelli's nurse, Mater Tenebrarum.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, the only one we haven't seen since.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I feel like in what continues here, I think Veronica Lazar is fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
The score rising eerily, Mater Tenebrarum reaches her feet, sternly shouting that Mark can't leave and that his journey has come to an end. She creeps toward him, proclaiming that everything around him will become dark and someone will take his hand. She states that he'll be pleased, not unhappy, enjoying moments of incredible brightness. Her reflection cast in the corner mirror, Mark stands before her, clutching his arm and catching his breath. As she suddenly disappears before him, her reflection still visible in the mirror. So I read in Tim Lucas's book, this is another visual effect that Mario Bava did.
Okay.
And it was accomplished with the use of lighting.
No.
All he did was he had this almost, I think it was a semi-transparent mirror glass, and it's the reflection of Veronica Lazar's stunt double. And the way that she's standing off screen and how she's lit, Veronica Lazar, what they do is they dim the lights on her, and it gives the effect that she's disappeared.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that looked cool.
It's incredible and all practical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They, I think, did the same effect Tim Lucas had mentioned in Black Sunday.
Okay.
And there was another effect with a mirror that incorporates a portion of this trick that was done in Blood and Black Lace.
Yeah.
So again, Mario Bava is just calling upon all of his
Yeah.
everything for the last film he ever worked on. It's remarkable.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
As fixtures shatter and the fire grows, Mater Tenebrarum's reflection cackles incessantly as she turns to face Mark, inching her way toward him. She bellows, "You think it's magic? No, I'm not a magician. As Mark cowers from the mirror, she implores that they have to hurry, as they still have to pass through a number of strange phases, and Mark will change. She insists that Mark was looking for her, just like his sister. This is what he wanted, and now she's coming to get him. Mark shudders fearfully, demanding to know who the woman is.
Mark!
See, I thought you were that dude's nurse.
Yeah.
Professor Arnold, I think his name was.
Oh, yeah.
But she promptly reveals the three mothers, asking if he's understood. Mater tenebrarum, mater lacrimarum, mater suspiriorum. But as she approaches the other side of the glass, she declares that men know them by a single name, a name that strikes fear into everyone's heart. She shrieks, "They call us death," as her hands reach the mirror, crashing through it, the reflection disappearing in the shattered glass to reveal the towering and grim specter of death, its visage a withered skull, and its rib cage jagged through the opening in its dark cloak.
I loved that.
Yes.
Yeah, that looked really cool.
I was just so impressed by the visual of it, and anything with a skeleton, I'm like, this is
Yeah.
fantastic. And the first time I ever saw this, I think I gasped. I was just like,
it's
oh my
so good.
God.
Yeah.
But fire raging around the ghoulish figure, it reaches its hands out to Mark, Mater Tenebrarum's voice echoing, "Death." The figure is overtaken by flames as Mark shields himself from it. He kicks the door open as the building shakes around him, beams crumbling from the ceiling and covering the hidden lair in debris as Mark makes his hurried exit from the way he came in. He forges his way through fire, past the smoldering corpse of Varelli, as frantic piano accompanies his retreat. But outside, flames burst through the windows of the building as a crowd gathers, and emergency vehicles race down the evening streets of New York. But inside, Mark reaches the lobby, pipes exploding from within the walls and shattering the ornate glass as the room burns behind him. He emerges through the Inferno, out of the ruined entrance of the building, panting and covered in sweat as he enters the crowd outside, and water rains down from the hoses of the fire department, unable to contain the conflagration. As they radio in for more units, Mark turns to face the facade of the structure, fire filling every window as the score grows triumphant and a look of satisfaction rests upon Mark's face. He exits out of the frame, in the same direction and in the same fashion that Susie Banyan did in Freiburg.
Yes.
But we're taken inside the ruined lobby, where Mater Tenebrarum, death incarnate, stands shrieking through the flames as the ceiling collapses around her and the music reaches a dramatic crescendo. We are once again treated to the Three Mothers theme song.
Thank you.
I don't know if treated was right.
And the credits roll. So, what did you guys think of Inferno?
I had a lot of fun talking about this movie. There was some things I will say that us discussing that I'll forgive a couple of things. I'll be honest. It does still feel weird in some areas. There are some things that I wish were answered or better explained or kind of anything. I wish we got somebody else besides Mark.
Yeah.
But we got, and he escaped.
Yes.
Yeah, that
What the
surprised
fuck?
me too.
He escaped through no effort of his own.
Yeah, no.
In Suspiria, Susie stabbed Helena Marcus.
Right.
And she figured everything
Yes.
out.
Yes.
She
That,
followed
though.
the clues and everything.
Yeah.
He did not.
Mark fell ass backwards.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, you evil lady, we gotta get out of here.
It was
Yeah.
still like,
You
and what was your name again?
Swear to God.
Because then it was a lot of fun to talk about. But it does look really cool. But there is a lot in there that I was just kind of confused. The cuts were very abrupt. Like some of them just stopped, and I'm like, oh, okay. And you're right. There is that section of the movie that feels very different. And I was like, I am enjoying this, but in a very minimal way. Like it is cool, but like I said, I think it was just more of the ride getting to the end was kind of drawn out for me, and then it's so fast. We get there, we get the cool little thing that happens with them. Then there's the skeleton, and it's death, and then it's just like he's safe. You know what I mean? I was like, what? He got it. How the fuck did he make it out?
Of everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone else is dead.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think that I did enjoy it a little bit more talking about it, but the issues that I have narratively still stand for the most part. Pacing as well is odd in this one, but once we get to that ending, I would say from when the song starts to the end when the song starts again, it's a ride. It's the visuals are really, really cool. Mark is sucking out the poison from his arm. Still clueless as to who anyone is, as to what movie he's even in. Which is funny. Like at the end, every time he's like, wait, what? It was very funny to me. I liked a lot of the misdirection with us not really knowing who we're going to be following or who the main protagonist is. I would have liked it, I think, a little bit better if we didn't end on Mark.
Yeah.
But, that is what we got. I think that the story just needed a little more cohesion for me. But it is visually very beautiful. The music, as I said, is phenomenal. The practical stunts that they were able to do, the sets and stuff that you talked about Mario Bava doing is jaw-dropping.
Yeah.
It's so inspiring and really fucking cool. It's just the story, man. It almost to the point where it would take me out of it because I'm like, am I behind or is this not making a lot of sense? But I still think that it is enjoyable. I would watch it again. It is just not to me on the same level as Suspiria.
And I agree. I think Suspiria is clearly above.
Yeah.
In pretty much every way. But I just love the feel of this film, and rewatching it and going through it, I do see more of a connection narratively than I did before. Whenever we're looking at the black gloved hands cutting out the dolls' heads, and you realize the one name that Varelli talked about in his book.
Yeah.
So this was Death.
Yeah.
And Death doing this with these figures that caused that woman that we saw in that little vignette that caused the moth in the lizard's mouth.
Okay.
And then caused the deaths of Carlo and Sarah.
Okay.
So it's like, oh, so we are all interconnected. And then when we make that grand reveal at the end of Mater Tenebrarum bursting through and is just straight up death.
I loved that so much.
It's like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
And it's just fantastic. And visually, there is not enough that I can say about this film.
Yeah.
We talk about films where you're like, oh, this was just made for me.
Yeah.
I felt that way about Suspiria, and I feel that way just looking at this film. And then every film that I've seen from Mario Bava, every film I've seen from Dario Argento, there is just a special feel to them that speaks directly to me.
Yeah.
And so I can forgive a lot of the narrative, a lot of the lacking narrative.
Yeah.
And honestly, man, we've said enough about Mark. we've really let him have it tonight. But he deserves it.
Yes. Yeah.
Does.
Like, there is not a moment where I'm like, this is the guy we should be following. It's just so bad that we land on him.
Yeah. Unfortunate.
He never even read that fucking letter.
No,
he didn't.
Weird.
Sarah read the letter and immediately went to the library.
Yeah.
Found the book. Like, I mean, she was on it.
Yeah.
And he's like, the soles of my shoe.
Yeah. And you heard it click on the floor, and he's like, well, I don't know what that could mean.
Right, my shoes are alive?
Yeah, that's weird.
My shoes have a sole?
Yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't tear his shoes apart first.
No shit.
Now, how do they put a key in here? But I guess we can slide into ratings. I genuinely love this film with its flaws. I unapologetically will watch this countless times throughout the rest of my life. I feel like it is such a worthy follow-up to Suspiria thematically and visually.
Okay.
The story is clearly much tighter in Suspiria.
Yeah.
I care much more about Susie Bannion than I do about Mark Elliott,
Yeah.
or really any of the people here.
Yeah.
I was glad to see Kazanian die miserably.
Yes.
Mhm.
I was rooting for rats. That's where you
Yeah,
put me.
Yeah.
But I think that's what's such a shame too, is because I honestly feel like Elise would have been a better person to follow.
Yeah.
She's a friend of Rose's. She lives in the same apartment. I understand we have to kind of connect to Rome through Mark, I guess, and to have it to where we can get this little tease of Mater Lacrimarum.
Yeah.
But again, if we're not going to really follow through with that, maybe we could find a way to not use Mark at all.
If only.
If only. God. But no, I can't say enough about the lighting of this film, the cinematography, the camera movements, the production design, the gags that Mario Bava perfected throughout his career
Yeah.
to utilize in this film. It's remarkable. I read it was the facade that he built that is part of these close-ups at the end of the building burning, and I think they actually did burn the set that Giuseppe Bassan built.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So it's, again, just fantastic practical work that seamlessly, and the same way where we're hopping between New York City and this studio in Rome.
Yeah.
I never feel like, oh, this is clearly this, and now we're clearly here.
No.
It's just really great work. But yeah, it is the story that could stand to have a little, maybe another look at it.
Yeah.
You know, I know that they did look at it a few times and quite a bit, but maybe one more. But no, and the music. I gotta talk about the music.
Yes.
I have been singing that song since I heard it all those years ago. But I have to say, for me, out of 10 fiendish and fiery finales, I, of course, gave Suspiria a 10.
Yeah.
I know.
Hey, stand in your truth.
Yeah.
I have to, because I love this movie, and I love the feel of it every time I watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I am aware of all the shortcomings, of course.
Yeah.
But for me, out of 10 fiendish and fiery finales, I'm going to give Inferno 9 fiendish and fiery finales out of 10. It is not Suspiria, but goddamn do I love it. And I will now open the floor to you.
No, I get it, man. You know what I mean? For me, Suspiria did have a story.
Yes.
And I think that is what kind of hurts it for me here a lot, though, because there is times I didn't fully understand until, and I know it is a movie later you learn, but even then it was like, I should have already known this, but then you do something else that I'm even more confused about. And then later it's like, oh no, I did think that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well I did know, but why did you do this then? It was that, and then the characters. I didn't really care about any of them. That was honestly, I think Mark really took it out for everybody. He fucked it up for the whole crew.
Any goodwill you had?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even the lady getting caught in the curtain on fire.
Mhm.
I'm going to be honest. I was like, but I thought you were one of the witches.
Yes.
What happened? What is going, you know what I mean? The butler. I thought you were a friend. What the fuck?
That you were in on it.
Right.
Yeah.
There was confusing times where I'm like, oh no, well, you're getting got, but I thought you're part of the coven or you're whatever. Are we just fuck it? Everything's going down. We'll take everybody with us. But it really honestly just comes down to that for me, because everything else looked really cool. I enjoyed the look of it, the feel of it, but it is that, and then the choices. I'm sorry, I'm not jumping in that water. I'm just not getting
Hell
in that
no.
water. The dude doing that to the cats, that was like, oh my God, dude. Like, that was crazy. And I root for a villain, but no, you're more than that. You don't need to be here. You know what I mean? Even the food truck guy knew.
Yeah.
He was like, no.
Shout out to that food truck
Yeah,
guy.
Yeah, man.
What an odd little field trip that was, just in the
Yeah.
middle of this movie.
And that. Where did that come from? Why was that put here?
I'm intrigued by it. I'd like to ask Dario Argento what was going on. I can only assume that the cook was possessed by the witches like the dog was possessed in Suspiria.
Okay.
So,
I just thought he was like, not around here. But
Yeah, no.
well, we don't do that here.
No,
If the rats are attacking you,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
did something bad.
Those are my rats.
Yeah.
they're nice to everyone.
But I will agree on everything you said. The music, like I said, all of that stuff is really good. The music, I didn't get down with as much as their theme song as you guys did, but I think everything else, all the rest of the music was really great. Was fucking at a 15 constantly. But again, it's really good. It's really, really good. But for me, on a scale of 1 to 10, fiendish and fiery finales, I'm going to give Inferno a 6.5 out of 10. I would watch this again. I'll be honest. I would, just to I'm going to get some laughs out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'll be honest, like you were just saying, the more you kind of, I know you've said you've watched it a lot, but watching it again, you're like, oh, okay, that does. So maybe, watching it again and again, it's like, you know what? That does make a little more sense. But god damn, does Mark fuck it up for everybody.
Yeah.
It's just hard to, it's just him.
Yeah, no,
It's not you, it's me.
He sure does. No, I totally agree. I think I would just be repeating myself on what I liked and what I didn't like. I think the story just really brought it down a lot for me. There are moments where you just want to shake some of these characters.
Mhm.
And again, cohesion. You explaining things more, it does on one hand take some of that away, and on the other hand, I'm like, I never would have gotten that by myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like, still for me, it doesn't make sense. If my brother explains it to me, it makes a little more sense, But I definitely think that this is a film that could grow on me. The amount of fun that I've had talking about it, my score today, I don't know that it would be my score forever.
Yeah.
Because I did have a lot of fun talking about it. And even the frustrating moments, there is humor to be found in them.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, he's not the smartest protagonist we've ever had, and his confusion in some scenes, it is very frustrating. In others, it's really hilarious.
Yeah.
Like I said, shout out to the food truck guy. And those rats, they did what they needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And all the cats. I don't care if they were knocking shit over. Close your window. If you know cats are going to jump in.
Think about that.
Yeah.
They live here too. But all that being said, I am glad that we finally watched it. John Paul and I had never seen it before.
Yeah.
So thank you for showing it to us. It was a very interesting watch.
Well, thank you both.
No, yeah.
But on a scale from 1 to 10, fiendish and fiery finales, I gave Inferno 7 out of 10 fiendish and fiery finales. The music, the lighting, the effects did a lot of the heavy lifting for me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would watch this again.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I feel like, and I will tell you both, the first time that I watched this film, I think I gave it an 8, and it is one that does grow on you even more.
Okay.
I hope the same for The Mother of Tears whenever we get around to
Okay.
covering it, because God damn.
We'll see.
Is Mark in that movie?
No, that's the only thing. The only thing it has going for it. Well, that's all from us at Pod Mortem. What would you rate Inferno, and what should we watch next? Let us know on Instagram at the Pod Mortem. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and like our Stairhole Productions page on Facebook. Be sure to follow each of us on Instagram and Blue Sky at TravisMWH, at Blood and Smoke, and at Juggalo Daddy 84. Thanks again to Original Cinematic for sponsoring this week's episode. Please consider pledging to our Patreon, where you'll gain access to over 200 hours of bonus content, our monthly schedule, our Discord server, and the opportunity to help us decide which films to cover. Stay tuned until after the music for a special thank you to our Wendigo Getter patrons. And remember, while it's easy to be enchanted by a facade, always be mindful of what might be lurking just beneath the surface. Until next time. Thank you for staying tuned. We want to give a very special thank you to all of our Wendigo Getter patrons.
Woo! Yeah.
Very good. A special thank you to Chris Ontiveros, Kristen Lofton, Megan Martinez, Kimberly Bass, Sophie Hodson, Anthony Jerome M., Jordan Nash, Kent Morton, Lala Thomas, Travis and Nisa Hunter, Miguel Myers, ATX, Jennifer Perez, Allison O'Neill, Carissa, TJ and Angie Bronson, Gabrielle Trevino, Applin Ontiveros, Karima Rhodes, Antonio Huerta, Kimberly Kleindienst, Will Brown, Sydney Smith, Osvaldo Soto, Bobby Holmes, Donna Eason, JD Rizak, Molly Gerhart, Armand Sposto, Aaron Aguirre, Eggy, William Barry, Charity Oxner, Amanda Six, Mandy Rainwater, Eden, Jordan Roberts, Dylan, Liz Heath, Spencer Montalvo, Pancake the Panda, John Ramos, Michael Newting, Alexis Roberts, Dan Laveau, Itzy M., Gary Horton, Leisha Olivier, Kate Lamp, Carlos and Sydney, Jessica Hunter, Helena Rudder, Alan Johnston, Mariah, Livy Fun, Scott Troutman Wise, Towton Watson, Mozzie Bear, Brittany G., Dave Burke, Adrian Stakes, Daniel McGinnis, Emma Hagel-Kissinger, Valerie G., Emiliana, Brian Glass, CB, Taylor Santana, Will Lewison, Angelique, Smelly Poo Poo Head, Beth Bauer, Cookie, Esperanza J., Jason Kyle, OKC, Joshua Rumley, Danielle Peralta, Brandon, Sawyer Reese Farr, Sahara, Girl That's Scary, Cassandra, Andrea Simmons, Ashley Higuera, William and Zena Rush, Ryan Brom, Megan Ochoa, Laura Lassiter,
Eileen O., Marissa E., Sydney, Megan M., Strangely Sarah, Christy Beck, Nancy and Andy, Amanda Lopez, Andy Terrell, Jason Hanovan, Katie K., Erica Morin, Cameron S., Tris Wynn, K.87, Mariah Jensen, Carrie A., Lonnie Lono, Powell, Kayla E., Maggie H., Murder Stina, Kristen Marcy, Ori 81 Baricua, Look Like That One Girl, Bog Boy, Felnez 63, Alita Pui, Probably My Jugs, Kate Thackeray, Wade Pack, A Lizard, Bay J., Jay Rich, Jen Lassiter, Topher Williams, Elena Metler, Valerie K., Christy Lee Kruger, Professor of Humanities Laura McCarricker, Naomi, Josh Smith, Autumn Green, Abby Kopp, Crystal 831, Skank Sinatra, Morgan Alexander, Tony Osteen, Julie Fredborg, Rihanna S., Daniel Taylor, Anna Kate, Heather Ortiz, Jen T., Kim H., August, Vengeance Spirit, Sam J. Green, Jenny May, Glittery Fab, Malik Caselli Armstrong, Scarly D., Toya Shea, Katie, Martin Shaw, Star, Tyler J., Daniel Dickerson, Jordan Gaddis, Cam Davies, Patrick Hoagland,
Raven D., Wesley Tart, Kristen Jackson, Jacob Nordberg, Spencer, Samantha, Damian Grant, Half Price Horror, Clemmy, Erica, Jason X Rules, Karen Burrows, 203 Duncan, Aaron Norman, Stephen Rogers, Victoria Smith, Corey Gillen, Patricia A. Graham, Erasmo Pena, Danielle Wright, Tabitha Thomas, Connie Lingus, Becca Boo, Richard Murray, Irene, Sally Slater 52, Jordan McCarthy, Christy Michelle Wilson, Rosalind Harnias, Emily Rance, Amy, Lisa and Kathy, Mike H., Karen with the Y, Christian Sadler, Hannah, Sarah Jack, Casey L., Evelyn Knight, Paula Garcia, Nikki M., Ghastly Grandad, Megan and Alexandra Saldivar, Lisa Sykes, Sunny Jonas, Kelsey Niemeyer Cook, Martina LaForce, Robin, The Face Flowers, JG, Morgan Novello, Ashley, Abby Young, Alex M., Brandon C., Gordon Sutherland, Georgia Renlin, Ashley Poe, Najee P., and Seth Schaff. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank each and every one of you. We appreciate your support, and we hope you know that we love you to death.
Ah!
I'm just trying to...
Yeah.
On theme.
Yeah.
Until next time.